It's Friday!
You always get so excited that it's Friday, and I forget, of course, that you get up at 2:30 every morning to work for some tiny little nothing radio station. And now I've just pulled out my earphones. Hang on. Yeah, so there we are. Hang on, let's just see if this reconnects.
I'm going to mute him because he won't be able to hear us otherwise. There we go. Right, right, you can hear us. There you go.
Yeah.
No,
I just called being an idiot, and I just pulled the wire out of my headset. Yay!
I don't forget. Getting up at 5 in the morning. Well, it's not 5 in the morning. I wish that would be a lie. And no, getting up
5 in the morning. You're already practically home.
I'm going to say getting up at 2:30 in the morning. No, definitely don't forget that. Ed Grossman, good morning. Sam Monroe, good morning. They're here. They're pouring.
We haven't done the Kempton Park Men's Radio Station 12 o'clock over the hurdles handicap stakes. Ed Grossman looking a little bit, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Kempton Park. I'm John Rickman. Ed Grossman looking a little bit frisky there. The colours of Her Majesty the Queen. San Monroe there on Ziggy. Ziggy first time out. Here we are. Don't forget, I was brought up on horse racing with my dad. That's why I never, ever watch it. ever. My dad was so fanatical. When we had black and white TV, because we didn't get the colour till 70, God knows what, and he'd pile one black and white TV on top of the other black and white TV, one on top of the other, so he could watch both racing broadcasts simultaneously.
I'm used to multiple screens now. I just think your father was a forward thinker.
Yeah, right. Especially with his betting. Dear God. It was so bad. His bookmaker would invite us down for Sunday lunch. You think I'm making it up? I wish. Barry J. Allen. Morning, you Barry, how do you spell the word two? Barry, I haven't got time, as I often write, I haven't got time to proofread the entire internet, which seems to be my permanent role in life.
Shocking.
Oh, come on. The Flash. Oh, you'll save every one of us. I watched that the other day. Flash. And a friend of mine was in it. I can't believe it. Suzanne Danielle, who's now Suzanne Torrance, married to the golfer.
And you cleaned your bathroom. I thought you meant you cleaned your bathroom with it.
With what? Oh, Flash.
Yeah.
Oh, he'll clean every bathtub. No. Kardashians are ending. Terrible news. Ed, be brave. I know that we help with mental health, depression. I know Keeping Up with the Kardashians has finally been cancelled. To be honest, so sorry. Phil, I hope that's not too much of a blow.
No, you don't understand. Since we found out this news, we believe that actually our work here at Men's Radio is done.
We're done. We're finished. We got them off the air. God, I hate them with a passion. I admire them. The mother's a genius. The mother is a genius to turn those absolute numpties into multi-billionaires. Man, that's a skill. Yeah. They are idiots. But they're idiots all the way to the bank.
They, make no mistake, they know business. Bravo to them for doing it.
Oh, no, they're sensationally smart. Sensationally smart. There was one, Sue Sleep, morning from a wet fife. It's not a euphemism. Is that a euphemism?
Very unfortunate.
Wet wife. Sen, you idiot. Oh, Sue, I read that so fast. I thought it said, she said, morning from a wet wife. Sen, why are you dressed up in that new picture of yours as a pimp? You look like a sort of New York pimp from 1975. What's going on there?
I have to say, I don't think I'd know what that would look like.
Yes, you would. I used to live in New York in 76. It was fantastic. Oh, my God, we had a time. Jeez.
Speaking of New York, can we get this over and done with? Can we please recognize what the date is and just say that?
Of course we are. Of course, it was not by subtle chance that we just happened upon that. Go on, Philip.
I was going to say, in a million years, I mean, I don't think I'll ever forget where I was, what I was doing, and how I felt when I was watching. I'm sure we're all the same, watching the news unfold for this day 19 years ago.
Yeah, 19. I know. I think it'd be interesting. Where was everybody? I mean, it's like, where were you when Kennedy was shot? Where were you when the Twin Towers were brought down? Where were you? And let's not forget the Pentagon. And let's not forget those poor people when the plane just crashed into the fields. God, what a day that was. I can tell you where I was. And it couldn't have been worse. I was editing a TV program for Sky, as it happens. I was working on this thing that we'd put together. It was a celebrity golfing nonsense. And I was in a TV studio doing all the work. And I was surrounded by dozens of TV screens, as TV studios are when I'm doing the editing. And so I had it on. I just couldn't believe it. It was just, I think what made it so extraordinary that it was such a perfect day. The weather was so beautiful. The sky was so clear that it made it almost unreal, that you thought you were watching a movie. My God. Where were you? Morning, gents. Thank you, baked potato. Andrea Lucas. Hi, boys. This is from Spain. She's probably on a tractor. Hi, boys. I've been working hard all morning, painting all the components and figures of our nothing fact. Okay. Chrissy, are you on drugs? What are we saying? Do you understand that? Phil, what does that mean?
What's a nothing factory?
What's a nothing factory? That's where they produce the ideas of the government of any complexion. I think there is a factory. We've got it. Chrissy Holt is in charge of producing all the complete crap ideas that every government comes up with, and certainly Sadiq Khan's traffic flow schemes. That must be made in the nothing factory. Huh, no sound, is it me? Yeah, absolutely you, Chrissy.
Believe me, it's loud and clear.
Yep, it's you. What is a nothing factory? What the heck?
Who knows?
What do you think she means?
I don't know.
Answers on a postcard to me, right. Horace Batchelor, Keynsham, Keynsham.
BW, where I was on the morning of the 11th of September 2001, I was at school.
I hate you. You're really pissing me off now. You are really pissing me off now.
To be fair,
I was at school.
I was in my final year. All right, I was in my final year of school, but even so, I was.
You were at school. Oh my God!
But no, I do remember.
What forgetting at 12?
What I remember is that where we were at school, they didn't really make too much of a thing of it because I don't think they wanted to put the fear into us or anything like that. But I do remember being there. And I remember there being a bit of a hullabaloo, it was going so well, a bit of a hullabaloo amongst the teachers because they were obviously sort of talking about it because they'd heard what happened. And they weren't really sort of letting on to the pupils what was going on, but they were talking way more than usual. Anyway, the upshot is that, of course, when our parents started arriving and then the parents started talking to the teachers about it, then we get home and then you just see this footage. And I think, if my memory serves me right, footage-wise, I saw the second tower live as it came down, as opposed to not the first one, though. And it was just...
I was trying to work, and of course, you couldn't work. It was just horrific. But the weirdest thing was I was in some... I don't know where the hell I was, down at the end of the A12. I forgot the name of the place, but miles. Took hours to drive there. And there was nothing to eat. And I thought, I've got to get a Diet Coke and a cheese sandwich. And there was a little corner shop. Where was it? Chelmsford or somewhere. Is that a long way away? I think Chelmsford sounds about right. Down the A12 for hours. And I'd left the studio and I was walking to this little corner shop to get a Diet Coke and a cheese sandwich, which kind of was my staple lunch. And my mobile went. And it was a business associate. I said, I can't believe it. I said, what's that? He said, the tower. I said, no, Michael, you got it wrong. The one tower's come down. He said, no, 2 towers have come down. Now, he was a terrible fellow for exaggerating. And I thought, he's got it all wrong. He's just making this up. And I could not believe in the very few moments that I'd taken to leave the studio and walk to this little corner shop to get my Diet Coke, that the second tower had come down. If you didn't know what it was, I used to go to the Twin Towers a lot. And especially if I had guests and family coming over to New York, they always wanted to go and have a drink up at the Windows on the World, it was called. It was on the 103rd floor. And it was so beautiful up there and so enormous and so vast. And if you remember it, if you'd seen it, the thought that it could just collapse with such a horrific loss of life, but just ghastly. Now, my cousin Francine Warren, I was going to say this, Fran, I hadn't got onto it. Michael, that's her husband, Michael Warner, was coming out of the subway when the second tower came down, and she didn't hear from him for 8 hours. Well, you know, he couldn't find his glasses. Knowing Michael, he just couldn't find his glasses. Fred, my glasses. No, Michael was working in New York at the time. Never forget one day when we got time to tell the story when he got stuck on the fire escape, as only my cousin Michael can. But he was down there. How frightening! You couldn't hear anybody. And my partner was in banking at the time, and they had a lot of staff over there, and she had the delightful job to see if people were alive or dead. Ugh, went right through the night. It was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. Gives me horrible. Not today, roast beef. What roast beef? What is everybody on another planet? What is this? Susie, I was in London supporting my American staff. They tried to get hold of family members in New York. Oh, Sue, that must have been horrible. Ed Grossman, we go from the Twin Towers to cooking. What is with you people? Ed Grossman, are you planning to fry any fish to eat cold tomorrow with some crane? Crane is a red kind of beetrooty horseradish thing that blows your head off. No. She's doing roast beef, says Andrea Lucas, hopefully with baked potatoes. Right, thank you very much. Sign of winter. Andrea Lucas, my daughter Barbara, well, you spell it like Streisand, don't you? Barbara was in New York when it happened and was supposed to meet her cousin at Century 21. Jeez. So many people, so many people have got stories of where they could have been that day. And just for the weirdest thing that ever happened to me, when you think, my God, someone was looking after you. I was in a business meeting some years ago, and we were talking about talismans and stuff. He says, well, I always get, and this, I think it was a lady, actually. It was a lady. And she said, I always carry this in my briefcase. And she opened up a briefcase and bought out a plane ticket. It was the Lockerbie flight.
Oh, my
She'd
God.
missed the flight. She'd missed the flight. She'd missed the flight. She was delayed in traffic or in a meeting or something. And, you know, just looking at that ticket, you think that it's a sliver. It's not even a cigarette paper that, you know, separates life and death. You turn left, you live. You turn right, you die. It's as simple as that. It's as random as that. And she carried it with her all the time as a talisman and as a reminder that she missed the Lockerbie flight. Like, I went absolutely like goosey bumps when I saw it. You know, when you actually see an airline ticket with all that on it, that Pan Am flight. Oh, God damn. Chrissy Holt, we're having a mixed grill, Ed. What time do you think she wants us around, Phil? Mixed grill in Spain.
But I think what we should do is take a moment to hold that thought. Back to you, Russ. Sorry, I'm dealing with a guest crisis here.
Guest crisis. What I love, this show is the randomness of life, and people say to me, your head, why does it go from one thought to, well, I don't know, inside of my head it's like a firework display. It's just the whole time something, thought here, thought there. There's no particular logic to it. I don't really do linear thought. I can't help it. It's how I am. Chrissy Holt's having a mixed grill. Andrea Lucas is talking about roast beef with a baked potato. I'll never get tired of that, Andrea. I'm sorry, it's not my fault. You shouldn't have such a talented stepson. What have we got here? We got something about high school, Subway, mixed grill, 2021. No. I'm looking at these things. Oh my gosh. Chrissy Holt, my girl's high school was hateful, more concerned with uniform correct than teaching. LOL. At 15, we had a boozy party in the Rose Garden, expelled if we'd have been caught. Chrissy, forgive me. Not entirely seeing where this fits in to 9/11. Where does this fit in exactly? The high school and you having a boot? Okay, fine. What the heck? Oh, right. And she's also saying that this Nothing Factory is C&M Production Factory, our new people. People, you think you're weird? They make weather vanes for their own amusement. I read books. Andrea Lucas, I was at work on 9/11 in the middle of a hematology clinic. Jesus. This morning AM, this morning AM, So media, isn't it? Sorry. This morning, I'm making challah, that's bread, and have got some apple in. What? I'm completely. What is the apple? Andrea, help me out. Please help me out. Phil's dealing with a crisis, and I'm dealing with people who. I think everyone's been on smack last night or something. Right. You got some apple in. For what? For what? What are you going to do with the, what's with the? Oh, Chrissy Holt's back. Oh, hang on. Sorry, Eve Phantom. Crazy name, crazy gal. Sorry, I'm late. I have a note from my mum. Please excuse Eve from Jim for obvious reasons. Right. Okay. Chrissy Holt. I know it's a sad day. But I'm happy. My daughter got a job. Oh, this is good. And I'm hoping that her life will get back on track. Fingers crossed. Yes. A men's radio station is really like a big extended family, isn't it? Everybody, because you don't all know each other. And yet somehow, which is the beauty of radio, is that you have this kind of family feeling, don't you? That you all get to know each other and each other's little foibles. Oh, Andrea Lucas, we're getting into the debt. Is it tomorrow? What's tomorrow? Talk about lapsed. Crumbs. What is it? What is it? New Year? It's one of them. I don't know. It's all the same day to me, I'll be honest with you. Good luck to her. Absolutely, says Susie. Yes, this is very good news. Your daughter has got a job. This is good news. We're very thrilled because one of the twins has, he finished Oxford, finished English literature, came out with a 2-1. And he's never stopped working throughout the whole of uni. He's the only kid I know who's come out of uni ahead of the game. Doesn't owe a penny. Freaking believable. Done it all himself. Extraordinary. I don't know, absolutely just powers on. Amazing. And now he's got headhunted and he's got a job, and I'm really thrilled. We're both so impressed, and it just keeps it all quiet and just gets on with it. And what I love, there's a quality I love about people is they don't tell you what they're gonna do. And we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that. And you think, oh, shut up. Tell us when it's done. And that's so cool. Tell us when you've actually done it and pulled it off. Good morning, chaps, says Steve Harris. I'm a bit late on parade. You horrible little man. Harris, I am talking to you, son. Those shoes, you call them shiny? Yeah, oh boy, that's like school. We have to have really shiny shoes at school. I can't leave. If I've got a meeting, my shoes have to be absolutely clean. Paul Claridge. Hello, Paul. Are you up on a ladder getting spat at? Paul Claridge has. I don't get this. This is a little snapshot of human nature that I don't get, that we try and look at men's radio, right? Paul gives out free newspapers. That's what he does. He's the loveliest man. He's a absolutely charming and very brave man. I know. And if you're just joining for the first time, 1, where the heck have you been? And 2, he had cancer very badly and got through. And he says, I had an acquaintance who on the 10th of September 2001 cancelled his flight for the next morning. Oh my God. The plane he would have been in was one of the 2 which hit the Twin Towers. I got to tell you, I actually just went cold then. I actually went cold then. That is so... Hi, Martin Bell from Mallorca. That is so scary. I wonder, does it ever occur to people, what would you do if you suddenly thought, I've been given a second chance? What would you do? Because that's really what Paul Claridge's friend was given, wasn't it? It was like, you were going to die and you didn't. So what are you going to do with the rest of your life that's going to make a difference? And how do you acknowledge to the world, or how you live your life, what that difference is going to be? Nice message from Mr. Lloyd Beanie. It was a big birthday for Lloyd, right? Every day. Well, frankly, with his medical history, every year's a plus. So we're both Beatle fanatic. I got to tell you this. You just got to be careful on the internet, right? and I bought him from America a replica Beatles musical setup. So it was all their instruments, and so it was the Ludwig drum kit in grey, the right Ludwig set that Ringo used to play, the Hofner bass, the Gretsch guitar. It was the whole thing. It looked beautiful. It was and it was all set up. And I bought this. It was not inexpensive. And I thought, it's my best pal. Anyway, this piece of utter crap arrived from America. It was nothing like the photo. It was disgusting. And I had a whole long legal hoo-ha with the shippers and with PayPal and everything. So anyway, so I thought, sod it. And it was a disgrace, actually. It was an absolute disgrace. So if you see something advertised that is like the Beatles replica musical instrument, don't touch it with a barge pole. You just get garbage. And no, the pictures just lies. So I sent a rather amusing T-shirt that I had done. Russ, we don't always know when we get a second chance. Ed Grossman, that is correct. We don't. I had a second chance when I had an enormous car crash. Had to learn to walk again, but I should have been killed. But came out with just smashed up ribs and hip displacement. But I should have been killed, actually. A bit like the people who missed the Lockerbie flight. Andrea Lucas, absolutely right. You know, my late dad used to say, when your number's up, your number's up. Well, I think that's, I actually, hi Lee Durnford, I think that's very true. When your number's up, that's it. And the key is not to look for a reason, because there's no reason. There is no logic. There is no plan. Life is a random lottery. If you accept that, you don't go crazy. If you start to look for logic, if you say the worst words you can say is, why me? That's not the question. The question is, why not you? Why not you? So when people look desperately for logic, it's not good. It's yes. Andrew Lucas has come up with a very good phrase, beshert. And beshert means it's fated. That's your fate. Random or not, it means fate. It's beshert. Hi, Lee Durnford. Well, how's your thing going, Lee? I've got the musical thing. I want to know how it's all going, because it's very, very good. Very, very good. Now, yesterday was World Suicide Prevention Day, and I can only assume that Phil has disappeared either because he's bored or he's got you. Oh, all right.
Not bored.
Dealing with technical
issues, and they're all sorted. So we are now ready to introduce our first guests.
I love the way he suddenly goes into commercial radio. He suddenly goes, hi, this is Tony Blackburn here on Radio Norfolk. Hey, remember Dave D, Dozy Beacon and Tish? I certainly do. Where were you in 1960?
I love the way you say that you remember it. I can't even say it, but anyway.
Isn't right. Tony Black? I got to just digress for 10 seconds. Tony Blackburn.
We've digressed.
Right, we got Ken Elm. Are you? I'd love to know that. I don't know if you're joking. Ken Elm, a player. You is a player. He's on his third chance. I've met him. I think it's probably true. Right, go ahead, Phil.
Do you know
Lead
what?
On, McDuff.
Well, now's the time so that we welcome our first guests to the show, which I'm delighted to say that we have got both of them. Hurrah! Yes, we do have 2 in 1 for you now. We have Chris Solimeno, and we also have Tania Bruce. We're going to speak to them in just a moment's time, but they're going to be talking about a new film that's been made which looks at tackling depression. And I know that you're thinking to yourself, hang on a second, we've just spent 20 minutes prating about, and now you're going to talk about depression. It's the way we
didn't prat about. We didn't prat about it. That's very rude. How can you talk? You were talking about 9/11. Why is that prating about? Yeah. You got told.
Have you finished?
I'll let you know.
Anyway, please welcome to the show, Chris and Tania. Hello, both of you. Welcome.
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much indeed for hanging on in there, for your patience. We can only apologise for the technical glitches.
I blame Phil is an idiot. Tania, what are you sitting under there? Looks like corrugated. Is this like an architectural?
I'm upside down. I'm hanging off my own ceiling.
I know that
you were. I thought you.
Quite literally. You think I'm joking? No, it's just a very designery ceiling. That's the floor. It's sort of the wrong way round. That's the floor. And
like the rug. Oh, let's see the rug again. I know this has got nothing to do with why you're here, but we're just bloody nosy. So this is nice.
Who lives?
Oh yeah, we like this.
Can I just say, who lives in a house like this?
Not me.
Go through,
David,
Back to you.
What's amusing,
Thank you, Tanya.
of course, the floor that you see above you is, of course, what actually everyone's floor does look like. Ordinarily, they're just plasterboard. That's all. Anyway, we're not here to talk about plasterboard. We are here to talk about.
I'm sorry. I'm just fascinated by this. Is this an architectural feature, or is there something that you wasn't put? I've never seen a ceiling like it.
I can't even begin to start commenting on the ceiling, I'm afraid, because I literally have just hung out here for 3 days with my friend Amanda. It's her house. She's redesigned it. I don't know. It might be. She's on the roof terrace. I can't.
Tanya, you want to have a word with Amanda? You want to have a little word? You want to have a quiet word?
I will have a word. Don't worry. I'll have a word after this.
Because the listeners of Men's Radio, they'll be having a vote. They'll be having a vote all over the world. Do we like the ceiling? Don't we like the ceiling? We'll get onto the film in a sec. The ceiling's suddenly an issue. All right.
Can I just, Chris, I'm looking as frustrated as you are. It's all good. Now, you are an award-winning...
Quietly handsome. He doesn't look frustrated. He looks like quietly handsome, that's all.
He's looking a little shell-shocked, I'm not going to lie. Right, you are here because you're talking about a new film that you've made. I made this for you. That is the name of the film, as opposed to me taking credit for your hard work. Now, this tackles the rather serious subjects of depression. And I have been told that apparently it's in a groundbreaking way. Why is it groundbreaking?
Well, Phil, it's groundbreaking. It sort of tackles basically a guy. It's probably easier if I just tell you about the film rather than just try and answer the question.
Okay.
If I may. So it's about a guy who's cut himself off, who is suffering from depression, has isolated himself, hasn't spoken to anyone for a long time. And he's actually made an attempt on his own life, and his friends are deeply
isn't technology
concerned about him.
Right, Chris, I am going to suggest to you that you appear to have a bit of an internet connection problem at the moment. Every single other word. So, Chris, can you hear me? Chris, I'm going to suggest that you go off and have a look at the internet connection, because at the moment it's cutting off. We're only hearing every other word. So, for now, what is we'll speak to you, Tanya, instead. And Tanya, you tell us what is your involvement in all this?
Well, I was Cristian's agent for his voiceover work for about 5 years at Rabbit Vocal Management, and I knew that he was making this film, and I said I wanted to see it when it was finished, so I did that, and I saw it screened in a place over in Hackney about 3 years ago, and I was in an audience of about 100 people, and Eddie Temple-Morris stood up and introduced the film, and he talked about his own struggles with depression, and we all watched this beautiful film, and we then had a sort of Q&A at the end of it, and his opening question was, who put your hand up if you've been affected by suicide? And so I thought, I don't really like putting my hand up at the best of times, but I thought I'm going to do it right now. And I looked around the room, and most people had their hand in the air.
Sorry, out of an audience of how many?
Probably about 100. So about 70 people.
That's extraordinary.
Wow.
It was terrifying.
Yeah.
It really scared me. Yeah.
Where's the film been, Tanya, for the last 3 years? Because it's obviously very impactful. What's been its journey?
I think I really need to let Cristian answer that question.
Please God, the technology allows.
Because he has brought it. He's been on the journey with all of the amazing cast and actors and all the people that are involved with it, from the very start to the very end. And I just picked it up 3 weeks ago because I saw him doing some work on Instagram for promoting it around World Suicide Prevention Day. And I basically said, well, how's it going? And he said, well, I'm struggling a little bit with it. I can't seem to get it into anywhere. And I said, well, maybe I could help you. So he came down and met a couple of my friends. One is ex-Sony Columbia TriStar Universal, and the other one is doing a project with Sky. So we had a little chat about people we knew and if they'd be interested, and and we all watched the film again. I've seen it about 10 times, and every time it makes me cry.
Is it a full length? Is it a full length film?
It's 1 hour 20.
Oh wow, it is full length. Okay.
But it's made up of. I don't really want to talk about the creative side of it because it's Cristian's baby. But for me, having sort of experienced suicide, it literally grabbed a hold of me as soon as I saw it, and I thought, right.
Was that a friend? Or if you don't want to answer, please don't.
No, I can answer.
Was it a? Well, I don't want to push it. But was that a friend or family member?
It was a friend 10 years ago, and it was my mum 17 years ago.
Oh God, I'm so sorry.
Wow. I'm very sorry.
So no wonder this resonates so hard. Wow.
But beautifully now. It's been one hell of a ride to be with you two this morning. Mostly the last 5 minutes. Of
course, obviously, yeah.
But,
everyone says that when they meet me in film.
Yes, yeah.
Right,
Anyway.
we'll try and get the technology back again with Chris. I'm not sure whether Chris, are you there? Chris, can you hear us? Oh, it was going so well.
No, it's going so badly. There we are. For once, it's not us.
This is the beauty, of course.
Live.
Or not you. It's not you. You were part of James Grant, am I right?
Yes.
James Grant Management.
Yes,
wow.
Absolutely.
So that's why you're able to pull in these. Yeah, I mean, James Grant just
a few amazing people. All
just
of which
slightly.
I was on reception there. When I was 38, I came back from traveling around South America, and I was on reception, and all those beautiful, lovely, very special people who worked there and were clients, but they all sort of, I don't know, are one big family. And Pete and Russ, who ran it, are the most amazing individuals. And I was very lucky. So I pretty much did every job in the company over about 3 years, and then I ended up running.
Does Peter still greet everybody going, "Hello, chums"? He used to do.
He never put that word to me, funnily enough. I think I was more darling. But I don't know. Anyway, sorry. Cristian's back.
Chris, can you hear us now?
Sorry about that, guys. This is better.
That's all right. It's not your fault. Right. Let's restart. Pretend we haven't seen you. So can you talk us through the film, please?
Yeah. So really, it's about a guy who's on the edge of taking his own life, essentially, and his friend's attempts to sort of pull him back from that space. And the attempt is really to do with this film that they make him. Hence, basically, his friend shows up at his house, and the guy won't answer the door, and he won't talk to him, and ultimately, it slips a DVD under the door that says on it, "I made this for you. Please watch it." And that's the name of the film. "I made this for you." So other stuff happens, but eventually, the guy and his sort of pivotal moment winds up putting the DVD in, and his friend pops up on the screen and starts talking to him, and he becomes aware that this film is this sort of last-ditch effort, and his friend tries to convince him, just sit with this film, just watch it, and then do what you're going to do. And so that's it. It's about a last-ditch effort to get in touch with somebody who's in a desperate state, and that's the film.
Wow, and it's 1 hour 20 minutes, as we've just established. So it's a proper full-length feature. And you made this 3 years ago.
No, we were in the process. It was probably finished about 2 years ago. I started self-releasing it because it's such a sort of because in answer to your previous question as well, in terms of what makes it sort of unusual, I sort of used the way that we made it was quite different from how you make a traditional film. So it's sort of like a hybrid of documentary and traditional filmmaking technique. So you kind of wind up with something that just feels very, very real, and in some ways you just feel like you're watching a documentary, but you're not. And so it's I knew I had a strange film, and so I thought there's no point trying to go through the traditional route with this, because I just thought, knowing what I know about the business, I thought no one's going to know what to do with this, and so why bother? So I started self-distributing it, and we were putting on screenings in different places and getting audiences, and it was really nice. And then a distribution company got on board. They saw the film. They loved the film. I was like, oh, this is a nice surprise. And then after going through stuff with them for quite a while, they had some issues in the company, which I won't go into. And then that meant that they actually shut down the sort of bit of the company that was going to do that. So the film came back to me around Christmas last year. At Showbiz, babe. So yeah, so the film came back to me around last Christmas. And then I was just trying to work out what to do with it. In the meantime, trying to make other projects and everything. And then COVID hit. And also honestly, because for a bunch of reasons, I kind of vacillated between, you know, like having the energy to actually get it out, because it's so, I'm sure you can imagine that it's just incredibly difficult to actually push something like this out into the world, especially if you're going to do it independently. And the channels aren't really, the channels of delivery aren't really designed for these tiny players like me, like us. So I was just like, this is going to take a lot. But then, and also like one of the guys in the film actually wound up taking his own life before we, if we can.
Oh, yeah, God, so, in real life?
God.
Yeah, so that was after.
Jeez.
And that sort of left me with a kind of in a strange position, you know, because then you feel like I have really mixed feelings about trying to get it out, even, to be honest, for a long time. So, well, I don't know, all that kind of wrestling with yourself, and then eventually I just thought we've got to do it.
Chris, I wonder if I could say this, Chris. It's very interesting. Tania made the point that when you did a screening some years ago, and I believe you said who in the room, and there was like 100+ people been touched by suicide, and 70% at least put their hands up. What you find with films like this is you're pushing and pushing, and then you come across like Phil and I and stuff like that, and we go, this is amazing. What can we do in our limited way to help? Because there is a huge audience. The problem is, you know, this film hasn't got Lycra and you know, 20 million pounds worth of CGI. It's niche, but there is a huge amount of people who want to see it. Huge. Yeah, you know, it's like
that's what is. Yeah, I think that's seeming to be true, and I'm as surprised by that as anybody, which is interesting, isn't it? Because I'm into the subject enough. Sorry, I'm trying to position myself in the centre frame. I'm interested in the subject enough to want to make the film, but then at the same time, even I'm not expecting people to really want to see it. You know, I didn't really make it for that purpose. I made it because I think I needed to see it. I needed the film to exist. Do you know what I mean? And so then, but then in that screening that Tania was talking about, I was just imagining that everybody was hating the film. I was like, oh man, I've made such a weird film. Everybody's hating it. What have I done? And then at the end, people had such an incredibly strong positive reaction. I was really shocked. And I thought long and hard about that. And I think the thing is that when they were watching it, I was imagining them as these like super happy, kind of untouched by troubles or worries kind of group of people that had no interest in that side of life.
That's not life.
And I think that's how, no, it's
that's not life.
You're so right. You're so right.
That is not life. No.
You know, Chris, when we kicked off
the reaction to the film, when you were there, what did you witness as a member of that audience? What did you see, and what was people's reaction to it? Because I think Chris is going to be too modest if I ask him that question.
Ooh, well, my personal reaction to it was it just made me cry my eyes out, but it's so beautiful and it's so funny in various sections. Some of the interviews with the guys are just make you cry with laughter, but actually at the end of it, where you see the lead actor just really struggling and crying every time, it just makes me think of my mum. It makes me think of a million people who just are so desperate. And the people around me, you know, we all laughed sort of at similar times, and everyone was very, very moved by it.
It's interesting. I went to Sam Monroe's, did a short film, 20 minutes, called Stages, which was about Parkinson's, and it was, and again, you'd think, well, who the hell's going to come and see this? Why? You know, he did 2 screenings. The place was heaving for both shows. I mean, absolutely heaving. And it's interesting, Chris, you were talking about the reaction. I was sitting, I went to sit on my own. It was complete strangers, about 3 women sitting next to me, and they sat down all giggly, you know, with champagne, and they were sobbing. They were absolutely gone by, you know, like halfway through this 20-minute film, which was good. They were absolutely gone. So you can never tell which way the ball's going to bounce, can you? You know, it's interesting. But people are much more sensitive and receptive than I think we give credit for. Chris, I have to ask, why did you want to make this film?
Well, that's something that I only started to really work out after I made it, to be honest with you, which is sort of strange. It sounds strange, but actually I think that happens all the time, that we're sort of doing things and we don't really know what's motivating us to do them. I think you're always trying to kind of right the kind of not right the wrongs as such, but you're kind of trying to balance what is unbalanced in you. You're trying to correct things that have that have become problems for you and whatnot all the time in your behavior. So unconsciously, that's what I was doing, I think.
Maybe another way of putting it then is sort of, where did the idea come from? Because no, I don't think that. Well, I believe.
Well, they're kind of different though. They're kind of different because on the one hand, you know, I realized that I later realized that. Well, like all of my films are to do with mental health, and most of them are to do with suicide. And I hadn't realized that how my father's death, and he died he died of an overdose of prescription drugs. So, you know, one would have to assume that is and alcohol, and one would have to assume rationally that is probably suicide. But it was always presented to me as a child that it was just an accidental thing that happened. As I grew older and I found out more about him, that really stuck out as being something that probably wasn't the case. So I'd never really acknowledged that to myself, that was a big part of why I was so preoccupied with the subject, and something I thought about so much over my sort of teenage years and going into a man. So that's clearly a big part of it, but I didn't relate that consciously until much later. In terms of where does the idea come from, that's almost different, because there are many sort of reasons. In terms of I wanted to make a film that is really that has got meaning. You know, I really wanted to make a film. It's very easy as a filmmaker to kind of go like, well, let me try and find something that can work, that can be commercial, that can get my career. I'd made 2 other feature films that have been well liked, but had similar problems with distribution and stuff. And so I was like, I really need to make something that. So I was becoming more conformist over time, as I was trying to be a sort of well-behaved kind of director and do the right thing to sort of get allowed in, kind of thing. And then, but something in me was really nagging at me. And so I just kind of suddenly went the other way and was like, actually, I want to do something that is strange, experimental, that actually pushes at the edges of what I can do with this medium, works with it in a different way, and sort of where I'm just allowed to just run and see what I can make and just pursue my own vision without worrying at all whether it's going to be commercial. And then you've got to make something cheap if you're going to do that. So then you're like, how do you do that? So these things drive it.
Question to Tania
Yes.
from Ken Janur, who was a top Fleet Street journo. How about TV sale to BBC 2 or Channel 4? We have very hands-on listeners. They love to get involved and make suggestions, and they're usually great.
Would you like to answer that?
Sit-at-home producers.
I'd like Cristian to maybe answer that question, because we have sort of talked to both channels.
Okay.
Channel 4 want to help us, and they're trying to work out about putting it somewhere to platform it for the month that we're releasing it for free. So we're talking to them about it and trying to work it out, and they're really going above and beyond to make that possible, because, you know, the film's not, you know, it's different when you make a project for broadcast. You know, you've got all different kinds of things that you've got to ready to go in terms of delivering the film, just technically. So they're trying to make that possible, and hopefully that will all come together. But they've been so lovely about it, and that just came out of the blue through some of Tania's efforts,
and my friends,
breakthrough,
my super friends, and ITV2 was the first port of call that I thought of in terms of channels. And I did send it over, having watched a talk that Paul Mortimer did, who's head of sort of digital comms for ITV2, before sending it over, because I just wanted to get a feel for it. And he sent a very nice email back saying that it looks a very powerful film, but it just doesn't fit with their sort of communication strategy. So he said a bit more than that.
Don't you love phrases like that? It was really positive.
Yeah, I know. So I took it, you know, we took it away, and we thought, okay, well, we've tried it, you know. I would have thought differently, but I don't know, you know, I just have an absolute passion and drive to get this film out to as many people as possible, however I can do it. And if people say no, that's fine, you know, that I completely understand.
But you've tried.
It's great to get the film, we've given it a go. Yeah.
I've got 2 suggestions, Chris and Tania. Number one, our final guest every Friday is called Chantal Rickards, who's an old friend of mine. We used to work together, and she's ex-head of BAFTA Los Angeles and ridiculously connected. I'm going to put you in touch. I'm going to step the heck out of it and put you in touch and see if she can try and channel it, no pun intended, some way to help. She's really good. So that's number one. And if is there some way that it would help? I should be doing this off air, but I don't care. That we can put a link. I mean, does the film exist somewhere that people can go and see it? Are you keeping it quiet, or what's the deal?
The film was released globally yesterday via YouTube. So we've just come up with a whole different strategy for delivering it. Is what we've done. Okay. So the film was released yesterday via YouTube. It's on Vimeo too for anybody who struggles with YouTube for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And
so could we have the links? Could we have the links and put it across our social media for you? Across
that would be amazing.
Thank you. Yeah.
No, it's absolutely our pleasure. We exist to not at all.
Also, we've made it possible for people to platform it. So numerous companies are actually platforming the film on their website. You can just embed the YouTube player, and so people can watch it directly there if you want. Or so it's very flexible. It's like an organic kind of model, which is working amazingly. It's working much better than we imagined. So. 2
questions then, Chris. I aim them at you because Tania bats everything back to you, so I thought I'd cut out the middle woman. Is there
I can come in at any moment. I'm happy to join in, but just
a crazy ceiling. Chris, if you guys, I think, have got my email address. If you could send me the links, we'll get it up across our social media, and Phil will be helping, obviously, and the team at Men's and Women's Radio. Be happy to get behind it. Chris, you didn't do this, and forgive me for being crass, but I'm just fascinated how this sort of thing works. You know, the movie industry exists to make millions, if not billions, of dollars. You did this kind of as a labor of love, presumably not expecting to see any return on it.
I felt like there's probably a way that I kind of have this naive feeling that if you make something that is really good, then surely somewhere you'll make some money at it eventually. But yeah, it's not my primary concern. I like to say that I see there's like, you know, there's business and there's humanity and then there's artistic endeavor, and you're always trying to balance the 3 of them, aren't you? But I think if anything, I'd probably veer towards, you know, humanity and artistic endeavor. So I'm probably not very good at business, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, you know,
so yeah, I'm just motivated.
They're very separate, aren't they? But Chris, they're very separate. Being creative and being passionate doesn't always go. That's why you need to kind of team up with the more with somebody like Tania, who can say, right, this is the property. You've made a beautifully crafted piece of work, and now we have to get it out there. We have to disseminate it and to see if it has a there's
Amanda. She can talk you through the ceiling in a moment, but we're on a
we could have a whole kind of architectural kind of conversation with Amanda. I don't know who she is. She looks busy though. She's got papers.
She's very busy.
She's very busy.
She's
is she ex-television? Because there's almost like a
television. No. She's just been on an SEO conference on the roof terrace, separate meeting going on up there. Of course, that's how we roll here.
There's clipboards involved. I've got a feeling there's clipboards involved.
There's a whole lot more. Anyway, back to where we were. Sorry, we've gone off again.
Not at all. We're just fascinated by people wandering in. This is the new world that we live in. It's fantastic.
It is. It's great.
It is. Chris, what's your next project?
I'm just I've got a few, but I'm just really focused on this right now. I just this is going to take a while to kind of complete, and it's because I'm doing so much of it myself. I don't really have the headspace to kind of focus beyond it. You know, I just have to really give it everything. But
totally.
But I just wanted to say, going back before, that thing of like making something and assuming people won't like it because it's unusual, and it talks about these topics, and I think it relates to so much stuff about mental health, because actually, you know, that's how we feel about ourselves, right? And our own problems and our own darker feelings. So it's sort of like the whole thing is emblematic of that. And it is good. It's interesting to see how people are responding to the film, how positively people are responding to the film. I hope it was sort of an indication of how receptive people are to each other, actually, if only we got the chance to sort of see each other more clearly. You know what I mean?
You've raised so many fascinating issues. One of the things we've talked about a lot on Men's Radio is imposter syndrome. And I've spoken to some really very successful people when we've just been chatting, you know, over a whiskey or something. And you look at these people, they're very successful. Their track record is fantastic. They've worked with the biggest and the greatest. And they, just like most of us, they expect the tap on the shoulder. It's all up, sunshine. You're rumbled. And it's almost a little bit. Forgive me, I've never met you before, Chris, but it's almost like, you know, you've done this thing, and then you think, oh no, people won't like it because. So there's a tiny little bit of that thing that so many of us suffer from, the imposter syndrome, when you're just waiting for the shoe to fall.
Definitely.
You know, I think there's
definitely,
that.
Except I've not got to the I'm successful bit yet. You know what I mean? The kind of, it's not so much like waiting to be like rumbled out of the spot. It's more like because I'm very confident in the work, but I think it's sort of really shown by the screening. It's more like the expectation of what other people are like. It's more the expectation that people aren't going to be receptive. I feel like it does what it does. I'm like, this is 100% what I want to do.
Chris,
I find that really interesting though, because because I, for a long, long time, was worried about what others think, and still am to some degree, but I'm nowhere near as bad as I used to be. But sort of for a long time, was really worried about what others think. And it took me a really long time to realize that actually, primarily those who don't like or don't agree are the ones who are going to say something just because, well, frankly, they're idiots. But those who do will probably remain silent, but you'll probably find that they are the majority. Do you know what I mean? So in other words, and it sort of took me a long time to realize that actually I don't really care what other people think, because if anyone's got a problem with what I've done, or they can't resonate with something I've done, that's kind of their issue, not mine.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, but obviously it's a bit different if you're trying to find an audience for a film than it is in terms of just living your life. Yeah, so, but I think you're right though, and I think
don't worry about it. I know what you mean.
Yeah, so but I think that ultimately it's that thing that you're looking at them and you're imagining their life. We look at other people and we imagine that everybody's life is so perfect and they're untouched by all these things that we're touched by and troubled by. And I guess that's what I think that's the issue. It's not so, and I think that relates to the imposter syndrome thing, because it's about badly modeling the other people, the people that are observing you. You're imagining them to be in an inaccurate way. So what you see when you imagine what they look at you is hence distorted. Do you know what I mean? So
one of the things, Chris, that we have found time and time again on men's radio is that everybody has a story.
Absolutely.
And one of the initial problems with the whole of social media is, look at my life, I'm fantastic, here's my glamorous food, here's my fabulous girlfriend, here's my fantastic holiday, and all this crap doesn't matter at all, and it's all nonsense. And one thing that this coronavirus pandemic has done is strip a lot of that crap away, and people have had to discover what is real and what is important in their lives and what is just ephemeral nonsense. And it's been shed. I mean, you know, big celebration, Keeping Up with the Kardashians has been cancelled today. I couldn't be more happy. But Chris, I'd like to pull you up on something, if I may, because it goes to so much of what mental health is about. You said something very interesting. But actually, everything you've said has been very interesting. You said, oh, you know, I can't look with imposter syndrome at like I've been very successful. And it all depends on how you define success. If you define success by, I've got a Maserati sitting outside and I live in St. John's Wood and I got a yacht. Okay, that's your definition. But look what you've done. From nothing, you've created a full-blown film. If that isn't successful, then tell me what is. Why would would you put, you know, you shouldn't downplay what you've achieved.
Oh, thank you, Russ. That's really nice of you to point out. Yeah, that's a fair point. And I guess that's one of those things you have to sort of update your self-image, but in a way, don't you, sometimes? But also, I think it's what I meant a little bit more was like, I think that the thing that people talk about when they're talking about imposter syndrome often, I suppose, I guess there's two sort of phases of it, aren't there? One of them is you're through the door and now you're like, oh no, I'm going to get kicked out at any moment because people are going to run with me. And the other bit is I'm waiting to go in, I'm hoping to go in, but they're going to see that I'm not supposed to go in. It's sort of like getting into a fancy nightclub or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got the worry that they're not going to like let you in and you'll be stuck in the line forever.
You know what it is, Chris?
Once you get in.
Yeah, I know. It's like sitting in the Groucho Club or something and you look around and you think, everyone's fantastic. And you think, no, they're not. Most of them, half these people are idiots. So the thing about it is...
Unless Mary and I are there.
Obviously,
Sorry,
if you were there, obviously, if you were there, it'd be sensational.
But just once a year,
it would be sensational. Goes without saying. Anybody ex James Grant who was there, it's showbiz. What I was going to say.
Allow me to offer my esteemed colleague a glass of water to wash down his foot and say that he was referring to the other half. It's not you. You're in the half.
I know. I'm certainly not the introvert.
I think Tanya's got it. She's smarter than a whip, Phil. She's smarter than a whip. Right. You don't work for James Grant and being dumb. Here's the thing. We think there's the them and the us, and that they're like terrific, and we've got our little noses pressed against the window, and it's raining on us, and they're all having a marvelous time. But they're as equally completely flawed. Sometimes they're lucky, sometimes it's skill. Who the hell, It's not what you know, it's who you know. But
absolutely, in this case,
but it's always that case. It's not what you know; it's always who you know, and you get that, and the ball just falls in the right direction. Yeah, it's all relationships.
But also, I think it's more broad than simply looking at like people that we see in successful positions. I think this is a lot of how we just look out and see people generally, which sort of relates to all the themes of mental health. I think, and the way that we get isolated, the reasons why we don't talk, why we don't open up, have got to be related to some version of that, where you're imagining it won't be received well. We're projecting what we think is going to happen, and we're imagining negative outcomes, and so we don't take the risk. And there's risk involved. There's risk making a film like this. There's risk putting it out. There's risk, but it's the same risk. It's the risk of communicating who you really are, how you really feel, your vulnerabilities, all of those things. Actually, hiding those vulnerabilities is understandable, but ultimately there's a problem with it. I think there's a fundamental problem with it. Not to say that we don't need some level of persona to get through life and all that. Of course we do. And but the thing is, there's a real danger in it, and we can become prisoners inside ourselves, I think. And like this whole business of how difficult I found it to actually, I can make the work. I mean, even making it was like jumping over hurdles inside my own head and heart. But even once you've made the work, it keeps going, and you're like, man, is it okay to do this? Why? That's the same stuff that I think people have. I did a webinar yesterday for a company, and I was talking with some of their employees, and they were saying, one of them was saying, I take prescription medication for my anxiety, and I really want people to know, but I don't want it, but I'm frightened to tell people. What should I do? I've been thinking about that ever since. What a spot to be stuck
Chris,
in.
this is a huge issue. We have shows dedicated on men's and women's radio just to mental health in business. This is a gigantic area.
It's a huge area.
And it's an area that is growing without doubt. And I've got a simple view on this, Chris. I've got a simple view, right? In the old days, there was no health and safety, all right? But you would have at least a fire extinguisher and a first aid kit, right? In any office, factory, or anything. That's the very least you would have, a fire extinguisher and a first aid kit. And you've got to see mental health in pretty much up there with that to look after the people you work with.
Absolutely.
That's what we're trying to strive towards. That's what we're trying to strive towards.
May I say something? Because I've been very quiet.
I got scared.
As we're on the James Grant theme, I'd just like to, and being in a workplace and being on reception and all these really successful, really fun people on the telly coming in all the time who are your clients, who are all lovely. But I had a situation where my dad wasn't very well. I joined them, and I joined them on reception for 2 days, and then I ended up staying there for 4 months. And then I thought I better go and get a different job, because I don't know, I should probably be doing a bit more. I used to produce TV commercials. Anyway, so I left, and then somehow, I don't quite know how, but the person that replaced me didn't really like it there, which I found absolutely extraordinary. But anyway, she left, and they rang me and said, "Can you come back?" And I said, "Sure, I'll come back." So I went back, and they basically said, "Can you do, so I was doing that for a bit, and we'll give you, we'll move you around, see what you'd like to do." Brilliant. And then my dad got really sick, and we were told that he had 5 to 10 years to live. And actually, we then got an email 2 months later, and he said, "We've got 8 weeks, girls." And I will never forget this. Pete took me outside to the car park and gave me a cup of tea. Peter Powell, yeah.
Be clear,
gave
the listeners.
Peter Powell, sorry. He ran James Grant with Russ. He gave me a cup of tea and he said, right, we're going to talk this through. And I was obviously a jelly. I mean, I was completely broken. And he said, you're not going to drive now. You're going to drink a cup of tea. We're going to have a cigarette. We're going to talk it through. And that is the boss of the company doing that with someone. That's not your friend who's sitting next to you on reception. That is somebody who is quite busy and took the time, literally saw my face and said, right, out. And, you know, having that support, that's a slightly extreme case, to be fair. But I did go away and my dad did die. And I spent 8 weeks looking after him at home with my sister, which was absolutely phenomenally fun. I know that doesn't sound like the right thing, but it was like 40 tales on morphine with some dogs and puppies and absolute chaos. But anyway, it didn't matter. He was at home. We were all together and it was an absolute shambles. But it was just the greatest memory I have of my dad. And, you know, if I hadn't been at James Grant, if Pete hadn't stepped in, if that hadn't been it's a small company as well. It's not like a big, you know, there were 25 of us or something. And reception is a pretty crucial role in any company. But, you know, it wasn't like we could just sort of shuffle people around or, you know, we had to think about various bits and pieces. But that the support from, you know, your work colleagues who are effectively your friends, you spend 3/4 of your life with them, did pre-COVID. Now what are we all doing? We don't have that.
I was going to ask you that. What would you, God forbid that, but Tania, God forbid that situation happened again. And where we are, and God knows how long this crap's going to last, like forever at the moment.
Yeah.
You've got to think, now you're on your own. Now you're staring at a screen. You can't have the hug around the shoulder and go out and share a cigarette and a cup of tea, and you can't feel that empathy. You just can't feel that empathy. It's not the same. And I think it's affected everybody's mental health, which is why Phil and I have been stepping up the game more and more and more. And we you know, I've got other things to try and do. And all my time, but like Chris was saying, you know, you haven't got well, paraphrasing, the bandwidth to deal with other stuff. When I asked you what else you're working on, you know, just doing the radio stations is because the demand is there. And to answer Chris's point, and it all reflects that if the audience weren't receptive and think, yeah, we really want to get involved with this and interact, you know, Phil and I'd be talking to ourselves as opposed to an audience all over the world, to our amazement. So, you know, I think your film will totally resonate. Now, Ken Amjanur from Fleet Street says, filmmakers will always, this is for you, Chris, filmmakers will always come up against distributors who believe in the old Hollywood maxim of art for art's sake, money for God's sake.
He's busy this morning. Maybe he should come on with us next time.
Kenel, you'd never get a word in.
Joking, we'd never get him off.
You'd never ever get a word in.
Well, that'd be fun. We could have a competition.
I wish you luck with that. I wish you luck. Imagine
now, because I know where I stand.
Imagine, no, Phil, but you have you met him? I don't know if you met him, but imagine Leslie Phillips in his heyday, and he'd see you and he'd go, well, hello there. I mean, it would just be, he's a real old school Fleet Street, but he's a very, very charming, very, very elegant guy. And Kenel then says, and of course, to add to that, and if you want to send out a message, call the post office. That was the Hollywood thinking of movies, you know.
Yeah, definitely. What's interesting though is that actually, oh, sorry, Tania.
I was going to say, or in my case, I got a map of the world out and put it on the floor. Cristian, stop me at any point here. And I thought, right, I need to write the digital marketing strategy for this film. And this is going to sort of help me. And actually, I never wrote the digital marketing strategy because, frankly, there wasn't one. And I basically just, I mean, there was, that was the wrong sort of delivery of words. There was one. It's just that we were working through it. But we didn't realize we were working through it. So anyway, I put this thing on the floor and I got a Post-it note out and I thought, right, one person in Jamaica can look after America, Canada, Caribbean and Africa. One person, done. And then I sort of moved into Australia where I've got dear friends and family, quite a few people down there, small country, well, big country, small population, having an absolute living nightmare in lockdown with the suicide rate going through the roof in Melbourne. So that I had a few, lines in there, and basically I tried to cover pretty much the entire world. That's what happened with my post-it notes, and that's how I tried to get the film across the world.
Do you know,
sounds good. I think it sounds great. I think that sounds
Don't
terrific.
feel you have to say, I mean, it's not your average line, is it? It's not your average way.
All the way through this lockdown malarkey, saying that the second as we go into this lockdown where people will be out of control of their lives, that possibly the bigger killer will be those who want to take their own life. And it's just, the more I hear it, the more I think, oh, heck, maybe I was right to think like that.
Phil, in all kudos and props to Phil, from day one, when we still had the studio, before I said, no, let's get the hell out of Dodge, because I just felt too nervous about it. As you know, radio studios are just so unhygienic. And everyone thought I was mad coming in with disposable gloves and spraying everything. They were looking at me like I'd, taken leave of my senses. And 2 weeks later, they got the point. That
to be fair, we looked at him like that before COVID. So,
yeah, of course, we do go back away. But Phil was the first person to say, do you understand? And I had to say, initially, I didn't agree with him. And then bit by bit, I thought, Christ, he's absolutely right. That the knock-on effects are far worse. I mean, the disease and the illness is horrendous, but the knock-on effects that we are seeing on a daily basis are going to take possibly decades to recover from. Possibly decades.
Yeah, definitely. And in the short term, I guess what we can safely say that day-to-day connection is broken for people, that physical connection, and a lot of the routes that people have traditionally, normally in their lives for getting affection, attention, and contact are broken. So the question then is, like, how do we supplement that to, like, as if people can't get fruit, let's give them vitamins instead. Do you know what I mean? Like, what can we do? We need person-to-person contact, but if you can't have that for a while, okay, how can we sustain each other? I think that's the big question, isn't it? And so,
but to go Chris, along with part of the sorry, go on.
No, so just to go along with the film, we've also sort of started a hashtag kind of social movement campaign to try and get people reaching out to each other more. And to sort of empower people to feel like they can do that. So that's also the hashtag is I made this for you movement, or I made this for you. And the idea is to just make something for somebody that you're worried about. Make them a card, make them a cake, make them
pick up the phone.
Pick up the phone. Well, everyone across the world, pick up the phone.
Pick up the damn phone.
Yeah,
that's right. But our campaign is to do with creativity. But yeah, absolutely. So that's a hashtag thing that's going on.
That I get
today as well.
That I get, but it's kind of.
I think it's. People are inhibited from doing it, though. So we're trying to encourage people to do it by it not just necessarily being a kind of. I'm not saying obviously pick up the phone. That's great, but it's just trying to find methods of having these communications. And if it's difficult to say, look, how do you really feel? If you give somebody something, that can start a conversation too, is what we're saying. So it's. And, it needs to be multiple times. That's the thing. It's like, it needs to be constant. We need to be in touch more like we would be in normal life, so that requires loads of contact points, doesn't it? To sort of get to a point where you can simulate that.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Number one, part of the human condition, without a doubt, and you've just said the word, Chris, is touch. Part of the human condition is to get a hug or hold someone's hand. It is. There's no two ways about it. That is in our DNA. You can't do that. So I mean, it's just so if you see something, you go bye, and it's just weird. That's how it's going to be. That's how it's going to be. If I'm watching Netflix.
But we use the expression to touch somebody. I was touched by that to also signify being emotionally moved by something.
Yeah,
and that's why I think. Giving somebody a gift, making someone a gift is a good thing to do in addition to calling them and stuff, because that is touching, that stuff. When somebody puts effort into you, you often get that feeling of like, oh, wow, you're touched by it, and that's exactly what we have to do by that means or whatever means. So I think we have to go above and beyond right now.
Well, one of the things that I've tried to live by, I'm not the world's greatest person, trust me. I'm really not, but my initials are RAK, and in America, they started a movement there which was RAK, Random Acts of Kindness, which I've always thought I kind of like that, because it wasn't all touchy-feely Californian tree hugging, wearing Birkenstocks rubbish. It was like, just do something just because you feel like doing it. And someone said, why did you do it? Because I wanted to. Why did you send me that? Because I felt like it. Just a random act of kindness. And it kind of makes you feel better, which is fine. I'm sure Freud would say it's all narcissistic, but it makes you feel better. And the person at the receiving end just thinks that's a lovely thing to just happen out of nowhere, you know.
You know, it's funny actually, sort of speaking about that. That's why I absolutely, this is going to sound really off topic, but trust me, there is a link. This is why I absolutely hate commercialized days. In other words, Valentine's Day or Christmas or anything. I Father's Day, Mother's Day, all of those. I love the premise of appreciating and loving those around you and spending time with family and all that. I get that completely. And I really, really endorse it. I love it. But what I don't like is the commercialization of it. And the reason why I'm saying this is because you are then forced into buying a present for said people to the extent that to some degree you probably wouldn't think of buying them a present the rest of the year round, because then you think, oh, well, it's Christmas coming up. Oh, it's Valentine's Day coming up. Oh, do you see what I mean? So actually, if you just stumble across something that you think would be suitable for that individual in your life and they mean enough to you and you buy them something as a random act of kindness, guess what? It's going to mean a hell of a lot more than whether it was a sense of duty.
Agreed.
I agree with that.
Totally. I love it. Couldn't get a word in for an hour, and now I've stunned a lot of you and just.
No, I totally agree. It's confusing.
No,
with
Tanya's saying,
the
who the hell is
isn't it?
this? Who is this? Tanya's going, who's this guy?
I'm like, I thought you just hooked me up to the show, but you're actually in it with us, right in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Always. Oh, yeah, sure. Of course we are. Of course we are. Right. So you're going to definitely send all the links by email, or I don't care how you do it. Just get it so we can get it up on our website, which will be the very least that we can do. And we can push out all the links on our social media and get people to watch and comment and, you know, and get to know more about, I made this for you.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's incredibly kind of you.
All right.
Russ.
May I ask one more question, please?
You can ask as many as you like.
Could you tell me about the people that are listening to this show right now?
Well, individually,
we probably can.
Just the audience. Who are we talking to, and where is everybody, and how do they know about you?
Oh,
well, we've
Three
all right,
questions.
I'll try. Well, you see, that's quite cheeky. You asked one question, now I've got three questions. I mean, I'm
This
a
is how I've had
busy
to work.
man. I haven't got all day. I
I
haven't
had
all
a
day
film
to deal
get
with
to the
you.
world.
Yeah, right. Who are they? They are from all walks of life. You've got filmmakers, you've got writers, you've got housewives, you've got people who've retired, you've got counselors, you've got psychotherapists, you've got people out of work, you've got everybody from people who have come through cancer and work their backsides off. You've got people in the music industry. You've got, you name it, pick a job, they do it.
Yeah.
And where are they based? Everywhere.
Everywhere.
UK, Spain, Australia, America, if they can't get to sleep because of the time difference, all over the place. Canada.
Right.
I can't tell you who they, I mean, a lot of them we've got to know and to love, and they were all strangers to start with, but, you know, we've created a bit of a family here, kind of an extended family.
I'll be perfectly honest. Some of them we have different feelings towards other than love, believe me, but let's not dwell on those.
No, let's just keep that to ourselves. Right. Anyway. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
you
interesting.
just-
That's very interesting. That's
So
interesting.
yeah, I mean, it and it's all people who, even though the station is called Men's Radio, and obviously we started a year earlier with Women's Radio, we have 50-50 split because it's not about male issues, it's about world issues. So Chris's film, which you're distributing, etc., has universal application, doesn't it? It's not about male suicide or female suicide, it's just suicide. Although, of course, as we know, the male suicide figures were 80% male in the UK, 20% women, and the figures have got actually worse. It's the highest male suicides recorded in recent history, and the figures came out last week. So yeah, it's Ken Amjanur. I'll sum this up. Tennessee Williams said it first with his great line from A Streetcar Named Desire: "I've always believed in the kindness of strangers."
And they don't come much stranger than here. So with that in mind,
That's
I
nice.
think we need to say thank you both very much
Oh,
indeed.
you've been great, by the way. Thank you so much. Thank
Just
you.
one more
Thank you very much.
name of the film.
Awesome, Phil. Thank you so much.
So, Chris,
I
just
made
tell
this
us.
for you.
And where do people find it? Do they just search for that online? Have you got any social media about it? Where can they look?
I made this for you.org, and you'll find everything there. Yeah, we're on social media, but it's easy. The simplest is just go to imadethisforyou.org, and you can watch the film there, find out about the hashtag campaign. You can get signposted to mental health resources and all sorts of stuff.
Brilliant.
And please send it to anybody who is struggling and get them to pick up the phone.
Terrific. Thank you both so much. Really appreciate it. And
Yeah, really, really fascinating. Good luck with it. Fingers crossed for you guys, and keep on.
Not playing favorites, but you disappear one by one. It's nothing personal. We'll see you very soon. Goodbye.
Thanks, Russ.
Bye.
They were great. I like them.
Love it. It's such
I like them a lot. They were great. Don't you think?
Really inspiring, seriously. I mean, you know what? It's just, I think you can hear as they were talking that. Okay, can I be honest? Here's what I'm thinking. I think
no, lie to me. I like it when you lie. At least I know where I am.
No, because sometimes I come across as a bit tactless, and I don't mean to. But
you
shut it, Kane. Look, I reckon that they were so concerned about getting, and you actually saw this with Chris in particular. The point was they really wanted to get their message across. Okay, no matter what, whether it's through the film, promoting the film, whatever, that they actually sort of came across as sort of I think that's why when I started talking about commercialized days, that it kind of threw them, is because they were so focused on making sure their message got out there. And quite rightly so, by the way. I'm not knocking that. Let me make it very clear. I'm really pleased that they came on and spoke to us about a really important subject. But it almost felt as if it was like borderline nervous to talk about it. But I wish they weren't, because actually it's a really important subject. And I thought they were great, really good about it.
Great comment from Paul Claridge. We don't know if he's up a ladder today.
Julia Hurst. Quite right.
Right, not tax. Hello, Julia. Paul Claridge. My late father taught me never to judge a book by its cover. No, actually, always judge the book by its cover if it's a book. A person may have 2 flash cars on the drive, but sod all in the fridge. Oh, that is true. How many times have you driven past a really crappy house and there's some fantastic car and you think, have you got your priorities right here? Likewise, a person may be the life and soul of the party, but may be crying inside. Boy, oh boy, does that ring true. That is so true. That is so true. How many people are absolute wrecks in real life and they put on this mask? And, as Keith Allen, the actor, once said, you put on a mask and eventually the mask eats your face.
But that's so interesting because it's really bizarre. The number of people who use, shall I say, oh dear, here we go. Right, off he goes. Right,
excitement.
Right, he can go and deal with that whilst he does that. Right, right. Let's go solo, shall we? Oh, there we go. Hey, I got a word in edgeways. Hurrah! How very exciting. Did I just say that out loud? I'm so sorry. Anyway, I was going to say that it's really interesting, in my opinion, the number of people who use, shall we say, clowning around as a kind of masquerade. In other words, it could be for so many different reasons. Number one, it could be potentially because they are depressed, quite sad in real life. Sad, I mean sad as in tragic. I mean sad as in they suffer with sad feelings. And the other reason, of course, is it could be insecurity. There are so many reasons, though, why people would use this sort of masquerade as an excuse to cover up how they really do feel. And I suppose if I'm being brutally honest, I do sometimes act a little bit of a clown, but that's primarily because I don't want to give people the chance to start sitting there and, how can I put it? I guess I don't want them to judge me, but I don't mind if they do at the same time. That probably doesn't make sense, but it's meant to make sense. So sorry if it doesn't. But the point is that I feel that by being a bit gobby and being a bit loud, it sort of shuts down any opportunity someone has potentially to start thinking, oh, he's a bit. Do you know what I mean? So, oh, good. You'll be able to smile again. Thank God for that. Well done. Now, is that the full toothbrush or is it just the replacement heads?
Just replacement heads.
Very good.
Hey, am I the only person? I got to ask everybody this, right? I know where Phil stands on this, but I got to ask everybody else, right? Have you looked and thought, what the hell have I spent on Amazon in the last 6 months? How many of you out there go, Jesus, I've just spent like, what now?
Don't get me started. Honestly,
I know. It's incredible, isn't it?
Ed Grossman must be an exhibitionist like me. Yeah, totally.
No.
But I am, and I recognise
you. Well,
Russ, I was saying just now when you went to go and
you're very complicated because you dress in a kind of not today, but you dress like when you're out in a very flamboyant kind of look at me way. I know that's your style. You're not doing that, but you do. You know, you can't. Phil can't walk in the room. People don't go. I mean, you go, what the heck? And you have a look. This is a person of interest.
Julie, I think you know what Julie has managed to sum up brilliantly. Julia, you should be doing this show, not me. She summed up brilliantly. I think what I was saying.
Is she cheap?
She's saying that sometimes one laughs at oneself to stop other people laughing at you. And I kind of get that. I really, really do. Because although I don't mind, I'd rather people didn't laugh at me. I'd rather they laughed with me.
Sure.
Right? I know that's so cliche, but I do kind
I don't think anyone laughs at you. You're not funny. Anywho, that's not the point. I think the way Phil and I operate on the same way. We've never discussed it. It's that we never take ourselves seriously ever, but we take what we do very seriously, and that's how I've always gone through life. I've never taken myself seriously. You know,
can I suggest
why the hell would I? But I take what I do,
but
whether it's writing or broadcasting, very seriously.
Can I suggest those who do take themselves seriously potentially are those who are a little too inward looking?
I don't know if it's inward looking or egotistical or just pretentious. I don't know. I think taking yourself seriously is a one-way trip to nowhere. Always thought that.
I don't think it's necessarily an intent to come across as, say, selfish. By when I say inward looking, I mean that you're too busy. One's too busy looking at oneself to notice what's around you. If you do focus on the seriousness of yourself. Do you see what I mean? In other words, you're too insular. Look around you rather than more, because it doesn't matter whether or not people do take you seriously or not. I don't think. I really don't believe. Obviously, I think people know the right time to take one seriously and one not. I believe anyway.
Well, that's a little bit more confusing because whether somebody else takes you seriously, if they're looking to take you on for a job, do they think you're just a flibbity gibbet, or do they think, yeah, this person's got some substance, can actually do the job that I need them to do?
But hang on, that's not taking yourself seriously. That's presenting yourself in a serious.
No, I thought you said whether others take you seriously.
No, they do. I did say, do others take you seriously? But why would anyone? But why would anyone take themselves as an individual seriously? And that's usually because they're worried about what other people will think, no?
It's because they think either they're on a mission or they're just some, you look at some of these politicians, you think, God, can you imagine what you're like over the dinner table? You would bore for Europe. I think it's that. Martin Allen, Phil.
This is the compliment of the day. I might frame this and put this in the downstairs loo.
I think you should.
Good self, Martin. Martin says Phil dresses as a swanker.
Careful. This could go horribly wrong.
I did have to read it twice.
You did. I bet he stumbled. Go on.
I just say
again.
As a swanker with a capital S, a poser, dandy, dapper boy. Thank you. That's the compliment coming from you. It would have been horrible had you have left the S out, but you did. Well done.
I'd have laughed. Ed Grossman, who is a man of some substance, let me just tell you, is highly regarded in his field. A client once told me in no uncertain terms, get off your blank high horse. I was taking tough stuff too seriously. It's true. Get off your high horse.
I think life's too short to take it seriously. There are moments, and of course you have to take things seriously. I get that, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously I do. And I'm not saying people should be by default a clown, but there's got to be some happy medium. Otherwise, when do you ever switch off? When do you ever let go?
Well, some people don't. That's the thing. Now, I'm going to be absolutely, you wouldn't get this on another radio station. I am sitting here, and you know what's going through my mind? This is ridiculous, but this is how we are. And this relates to so many people around the world.
Are you thinking, I hope your toothbrush heads fit?
No. I know they're fit. They're not quite as stupid as I pretend. No, I touched the envelope with Posty, my mate, the Posty.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting here thinking, I've got to wash my hands. I can't concentrate fully. I've got to wash my hands. I will be gone 10 seconds. I have got to wash my... I know you're probably thinking this is ridiculous. I can't help it. I want to concentrate fully on what I'm doing. And my mind is saying, you've got to wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. So give me a second.
There he goes. Well, it's good to know that Russ is clean. So there's nothing wrong. Actually, do you know what? I actually think he really raises a very valid point. Because in my house, when we receive anything like post or parcels or shopping or anything like that, everything gets cleaned with antibacterial and antiviral spray. This is not just a case of we take, and also if it's someone passing something to us that we're unsure of, we'll wear disposable gloves or cotton gloves. Actually, I don't really like the disposable ones. I use cotton gloves and I boil them at the end of each day. So I'll use one pair of gloves throughout the day, which I know people are going to say, hang on a sec, that defeats the object. You're spreading germs around. Yeah, but I'm not touching the germs. I'm really sorry to be that selfish, but I'm not touching them, and therefore it's protecting me and it's protecting my family. So I'm not touching the germs. So I wear cotton gloves. And what I do is at the end of it, obviously, whenever I come back, I always wash the hands thoroughly. So that's fine. You know, dandy, great stuff. Everyone does that, I hope. But in particular, what we do is that we will spray the parcels or the letters or the shopping or anything like that. And we can spend ages doing this. As in, when we get a full shop, my family and I can spend up to an hour cleaning the shopping, but it's so worth it because it's something that reassures you, puts your mind at ease, just thinking, okay, good. I've lowered the risk. I might not have got rid of the risk, but I've lowered it. And that's the important thing. So actually, I'm with you all the way, Russ. If you are sitting there thinking, I really need to wash my hands now, do it. Doesn't matter.
It's the new reality. It is the new reality. And I'm thinking, it's not fair on me. It's not fair on anyone I may encounter. As a life, this is Sue Sleet in a rainy Fife in Scotland. As a life in social care, I took life seriously and my role seriously. On occasion, my son would say, for heaven's sake, Ma, be mum. For heaven's sake, be mum and leave social care at the door. Oh.
I bet you that wasn't easy to do, Sue. Did you ever? Really interesting. Did you ever manage to do that? Because I bet that wasn't easy. Because I know there are some times when I've gone to work and I can't leave problems at the door. Obviously, I have to sort of really focus on the work that I'm doing. But sometimes it's not easy. If I'm worried about something or someone who just walks through a door and then says, oh, it's okay now. Who was I speaking to the other day? Oh, I know who it was. Russ, it was when you and I were at lunch the other day. And one of the people who were at lunch as well, I don't know if you were there or not when you were at the conversation, they were talking about walking through doorways is kind of a sort of a sort of subliminal arch that makes you change your mindset when you walk through a door. Apparently there was a study of some description.
Through a door. This is interesting from it's very hard to do that. It's very, very hard. And of course, with lockdown, there's no separation. There isn't the work-home divide. And I think for many people, that must be really, really difficult. The other thing that I will be fascinated to see will be the divorce rate in the United Kingdom. Well, worldwide, but I can't deal with the whole world. My brain won't take it. The divorce rate in the UK, I think it's going to go through the roof. Through the roof. Ed Grossman, algorithms and AI. You see, this is where life... It's funny, and on the other hand, it's really quite disturbing. Ed Grossman, algorithms and AI. I had a message on my phone from Uber with a photo of a salt beef sandwich and the words, order it here. This was late at night, and I'm close to ordering one. Think about the algorithms that put that message together. That is really, really interesting. Really, I know it sounds trite, but it's not. Think about the marketing and the targeting that went behind that, and the amount of computer work that must have gone into building that. That's extraordinary. So they know, for whatever reasons, from all the information that Ed would fancy, as would I, a salt beef sandwich. Gotta love them with pickle on rye. Kill for them.
Do you think that's racist?
Do I think it's racist?
I'm being deadly serious. Do you think it's racist?
No, I get your point. No, I get your point. I get your point. Wow, I hadn't thought of that. Do I think it's racist?
or at the very
What
best.
about suppose it targeted supposing it targeted? Let's say, hang on. Supposing it targeted Edward Adu and said, "Do you fancy?" Because Ed likes it. So fried chicken. He loves his fried chicken. No, get fried chicken. Right? Is that racist? Or is that they just know that Edward Adu likes fried chicken, which he loves, as opposed to Ed Grossman, who would like a salt beef sandwich? I don't know. Why is it racist? Is it racist?
No, I don't think, knowing Ed as well as I do, I don't think Ed would find that racist, but I believe there'd be others who'd find it racist on his behalf.
Yeah, well, they can just go do one, can't they?
But why?
Ed's not.
But hang on.
Ed's not offended.
No, you can't go and do one, because if it does offend,
I don't want people being offended on your behalf. This is all bullshit. This is why the world's raving mad. If Ed's not upset, it's fine.
But what if someone does find something offensive? Well, it doesn't matter?
No, if somebody finds something offensive, of course it matters. But I think Ed is more worried about the AI implications. He's not saying, "Oh, Jesus, I'm Jewish." And they know, they're saying salt beef sandwich. All the bastards. He's not saying that. His point is, think about the algorithms and the artificial intelligence has gone to make that advert and target it to Ed Grossman at 33 the High Street or wherever he lives. Ed's saying it's not racist. It's not right. I don't know. What? I don't know. What are you supposed to say? Send out to every Catholic, "Hey, fancy some fish tonight? It's Friday." Is that racist? No.
That's it, because if they can't eat it on a Friday, some of them, so don't start
Right.
that.
How do you mean? I don't understand.
Offensive.
Is it offensive? I thought you had to have.
No, because sometimes there are Fridays you can't have fish, so you can't.
Okay, fine. All right. I don't know the entire ins and outs of the canon of Catholicism and the dietary requirements. But, Chrissy, I don't give a toss what anyone says to me. Well, it's interesting you say that. Hang on, we love this. This is the quote of the week. Ramzi Y. Musalem. "I'm a Palestinian and I like a salt beef sandwich." We love you. We love you.
I mean, if that doesn't bridge the problems in the Middle East straight there.
You know what? I think the whole thing could be, the whole Middle East could, if they sat down with some salt beef, right?
Can I just boot out all the incumbents? Just get rid of the whole bloody lot of them who are in charge.
And here we go. And Ed Grossman is saying, "And I like shawarma."
Yeah.
I love shawarma. Me. Ooh, I love that. It's interesting. Chrissy Holt, here's the thing. Earlier, I didn't read it out. You said you worry everything. You inherit it from, I think, your dad. I don't want to start scrolling through hundreds and hundreds of messages. And you say, "I worry about everything. I can't help it. I inherit it from my dad." And you say, "I don't give a toss what anyone says to me." Kind of. They're not marrying up, are they? Those two things. E Phantom.
I like the personalized offers. Oh, sorry. Really shouldn't need to be prompted about that.
No, but I like doing it because
I'm sorry. I'm saying I really shouldn't have been. I shouldn't have needed. I apologize.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm actually saying I'm sorry. I shouldn't have had to have been prompted about it. I apologize. I like the personalized offer that Cookie Data presents me with on my phone and laptop. Really?
Are you being sarcastic, E Phantom, or are you being serious? I find it quite scary.
Ramsey, don't start. We'd argue about who started hummus. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows it was the Greeks, so don't start.
It was the man Fred's. Ed Grossman will get that gag, or anybody else in the music business of a certain age. What is shawarma? Oh, Chrissy Holt, you are missing out on one of the great culinary Phil, you will describe it. So you don't like shawarma?
I'm
What's the matter
veggie.
with you? Oh yeah, you're pescatarian. All right, shawarma is you get this fabulous. All right, I'll come back to you, E Phantom, in a second. You get this fabulous bread, and into the bread you put the meat and the salad and the various sauces and some pickles, and it's like a big pocket of bread. It's just fantastic. That is shawarma. You would love it. It's really great.
Well, I like something that's very similar that's called sabich or sabich. It depends what part of the country you come from that you pronounce.
Really savage.
Sabich. Sabich, okay? And what sabich is it's grilled aubergines with boiled egg. But what it is, it's overdone. The eggs are deliberately overboiled, so they actually turn almost black. Now, don't knock it because it's really nice. And it's all mixed with different types of salads that you'd get in shawarma or in falafel. But it's all done either in pitta or in that Oh, Ramsey, help me out here. What's the name of that large flatbread that Russ was just referring to?
Terry. It's called Terry. That's its name.
Anyway.
Terry. Brother Barry.
The
shawarma. Heaven on earth.
But anyway.
What is tahina?
Tahina.
Is that another salady thing? What's tahina now?
No, tahina is a type of sauce.
Oh, it is a sauce. Ramsey, honestly, you preempted me. Anyone seen Curb Your Enthusiasm episode on Palestinian chicken?
Andy, thank you. Laffa.
Yes, completely. What is laffa?
It's not
a minute.
Bread. Laffa is the bread I was thinking of. The large flat bread.
Oh, laffa. I've never heard of this. And now Andrew Lucas has come back with sesame. And taboon. What is taboon? Ramsey, you got to help us out here. Suddenly we've gone bread mad.
Hang on, I thought taboon was a brand, I thought.
What is that? I've never heard of it. This is great. I don't know what that is. Taboon bread. Must try it. Sausage rolls, heaven on earth for me. Look, Chrissy, you're talking my language here. There's always time for a sausage. You can take that anytime, any way you like it. Sausage rolls? Oh, you mean, I thought you meant like cooked sausages, put them in a roll, like a sausage sandwich. Sausage rolls? No. They've got to be really well made. Otherwise, they're just horrible. They're like, just sticking a lead weight in your stomach, and then you walk around going, oh, that was tasteless and vile. It's a brand they make pita bread. What is this? Taboon. Okay, Ramsey, you can't post pictures here, but we like, Russ, I love this show. With one post, I've turned it into a food show. Well, this is the nature of life. People get interested, and people have a scattergun sort of mentality. Why not? Sausage rolls. There are some fantastic, some of these little places you get down South London, especially East London, and they make these sausage rolls. Oh, that's delicious.
Honestly.
Nothing beats a bacon sandwich. Well, bacon sandwiches.
Heaven's sake, we're talking about all Middle Eastern food.
Bacon? No, he's saying, well, no, because Chrissy Holt loves a sausage roll, and Ken, I'm a bacon sandwich. A bacon sandwich is great.
I don't mind a bacon sandwich.
Yeah, I like it. Sausage to Greg's? No. Phantom, this is not helping my diet.
Tell me about it. I'm trying to cut out carbs at the moment. I'm trying to cut out carbs at the moment. And guess what's downstairs?
Holla.
Yeah, I've just baked one. That's not going to help.
Well, that's not helping you then.
What?
Well, that's not going to help.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Terrible. I've just made a challah.
Is it going to be a success every week? It's either great, good, bad, indifferent.
Well, let's try.
Is it going to be good?
Hang on, let's see if we can remedy. Let's find out. Hang on a second. Right.
Harissa prawns with cauliflower rice.
What's harissa?
Yeah, I'm liking that. That sounds good. Harissa prawns with with cauliflower. Cauliflower rice is pretty good. I try not to eat rice if I can. I like it a lot, but I'm not. I try not to eat it.
Rice is nice.
Rice is nice.
I will be right back.
Where's he gone now? If he's gone to look at his bloody holler, I swear to God. I'm coming to you next year for holler. I don't know if that's a promise or a threat. The trouble is, every single listener will have their own place that they will tell you makes the best holler. And they will not accept that, Grzinski's is better than Panzer's, or this one is better than that one. It's a complete personal taste. Like everyone will say, "Oh, my mum made the best chicken soup. My mum made the best." I've seen more rows break out over people saying,
"Oh, there I am."
Roving Phil.
There we are. Look at that. Isn't that good?
It's fantastic. We're getting a nice view of Phil Dave Towers, which is nice. I couldn't get over that woman's ceiling. What the hell was that?
Oh, look, and now Carlo's saying hello as well. But anyway,
okay, this is good. All right. We're in the kitchen.
Right, this is
so
today's.
Exciting.
Right, this is today's collar.
Let's have oh yeah. Oh Jesus, that looks great. Damn, that looks really good. You don't put sesame seeds on the top or anything, or what is that?
No. Nice and plain.
Oh, I like that. Hang on, wait. Go back. You got a little cover for it. You got a little hollow cover. Where are you going now?
Well, I've got a collar cover. I've got a net that I put over it. I don't want the flies to get to it.
What flies? Where
Or,
are you living?
frankly, I
You're
don't.
living in
Frankly, I don't
Madagascar.
want.
I thought you were in
Frankly, I don't-
Hertfordshire. It's in Madagascar suddenly with flies everywhere.
And actually, and frankly,
Sue
I'm not
sleeps.
going to lie. I don't want the folks to get to it either yet. So got to be
Fat
careful with
chance.
these things.
You put a sort of automatic taser in, and if they cut it, they get electrocuted. That's what I'd do. Sue Sleet up in rainy Fife in Scotland just made chicken Winston. Thank God she explains. I've never heard of this. Roast chicken, onions in a cream curry sauce. Oh yeah, you've got my attention. Chicken Winston, roast chicken, onions in a cream curry. Yes, liking that. Martin Allen, my CFS. You're going to have to help me out. I'm so sorry. CFS doctor. I know it's a serious thing, and I don't know what it.
Chronic fatigue syndrome.
What does it stand for? I'm so sorry, Martin. I should know, and I don't. I apologize. Has told me for 1 month, no chocolate.
Chronic fatigue syndrome, perhaps?
Could be. Well done. No chocolate, crisps, nuts, and cake. 12 days in and suffering with the DTs. It's killing me. Oh, Martin. Wow. Isn't that interesting? Now, I try not to eat chocolate. I have maybe one square every few nights. And don't have crisps in the house. I have cashew nuts. I never have cake. Have you really got DTs? Wow. So you're coming off the sugar.
What's DT?
My theory. Delirium tremens. Delirium shakes. Delirium tremens. God, how the hell did I know that? Stuff it's weird, isn't it? The stuff at the back of your head. It's like finding an old pair of socks. You go, God, that's where they are. Ed Grossman, holler. I was brought up to see my mum asking for her holler. I love that. That's so London. That's such a London thing. Her holler, not just any old one on a Friday morning. Now, when I lived in North London, not every Friday, but sometimes on a Friday, do you know what's it called? Bittersea Circus Roundabout. You had Nobby Norman, the bike shop, which was just my idea of heaven. And there used to be a few shops, and then they buggered it all up. But anyway, on Bittersea Circus Roundabout in North London, sort of Hendonish, there was a little bakery. Friday, you'd think they were giving freshly minted £20 notes away. You've never seen queues like it. Was crazy. The queues were enormous. The rows. You could make a whole sitcom out of the rows in the queue. I only just need one bake. Yeah, well, everybody just needs that. People would just triple parking. If they could park on top of the roof of the other 4x4, they would have parked there. Paul Claridge, I'm vegetarian. Paul, we can't be friends. Best veggie vegan sausage rolls that I have in the Oak Bakery down in St Leonard's near Hastings. They make their own with a range of different flavors and ingredients. Oak Bakery. What is this, an advert suddenly? Oak Bakery is one of those little hidden gems, always packed out at lunchtime with queues along the pavement. Only a tiny little shop, but great to see an independent business which continues to thrive. Totally. It is these niche businesses which are going to survive this absolute maelstrom of a nightmare. Absolutely, definitely. Martin, were you serious? Was Phil right? First of all, was it chronic fatigue syndrome? And what are the symptoms you've got? This is really interesting stuff. You're saying you got the DTs. You're shaking because you're coming off sugar. I try to have no sugar if I can at all. Never have it in tea, coffee, ever. It's interesting. If you can find these little shops, I find them life enhancing. I really do. It sounds silly. I love these little shops run by mum and dad, or it's a little family business. Great. When Rachel Arto, back in the days when we had a life, used to go to town just to meet up for a coffee or something with, say, Colin Vaines or something. We'd always go to some little strange little cafe. Same with Howard and I. Howard and I always used to have our meetings, setting all this up, just in some little greasy spoon run by the people who owned it. I loved all that.
Now, Russ,
what
would you say?
I would say, what are you eating?
It's a cereal bar. What would you say is the lifeline, the lifeblood of this program? Because I think it's the listener.
It's the listeners. It's the listeners' programs. We're just here as pipelines. It's the listeners. It's what to do with the listeners. Why?
Once in a while, we're very lucky that we get the opportunity to invite a listener to join us on the program to talk about their experiences in life and some of the things that they've been through. Now, I think most listeners are brilliantly vocal, and please let that continue in sharing your feelings and your thoughts and your stories about what you've been through in life. And we love it. We absolutely
do. We absolutely love it. You are the show. Just Phil and I just here to sort of put it together, but you are the show, and you know it.
But once in a while, we are even luckier to welcome the listener into the fold of the program. And our next guest is here, and he's actually somebody who I've stumbled across before, and I'm hoping that he's going to remind me how we first met, because I know we have done. I just can't remember how.
I'll tell you exactly where you met. You met at my one-man show when I did it in Hammersmith. Oh
my God, you're absolutely right. Paul, forgive me, sir. Yes, that's absolutely right. Anyway, Paul Nathan he's one of the, luckily he's one of the more vocal listeners who does absolutely comments on, but he's got a heck of a story that frankly I'm not going to bother sort of trying to relay, because actually I think it's much better coming from the man himself. Let's welcome to the Daily Show with Russ, Kane and Phil Dave, Mr. Paul Nathan. Paul, a very good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Russ. Good afternoon, Phil.
And good afternoon to you.
Now, I was quite reluctant to actually let you onto this program, because you're arguably one of the more dapper gents, and I was quite worried you were going to show me up. So I was most worried.
Phil, I just want to congratulate you on the hair. I think it was an excellent move. It suits you, and you should feel utterly confident in it.
Thank you.
And I will tell you something, my friend. You know, I have a very old friend who often will say to me, yeah, you look great, but you've still got your hair. And I say, are you healthy? Yes. Are your kids healthy? Yes. Then be quiet about hair. Absolutely. Really unimportant. But it suits you.
Right. Thank you.
It looks great.
But you're absolutely right. And I have to tell you, Paul, that was a massive part of my coping mechanism. And it sounds so stupid. And I know what you're going to talk about now. I know exactly what you're about to talk about, what you're about to relay to us. And yet I feel so idiotic for getting so het up about hair falling out. For God's sake, as if it matters.
To be honest, I mean, you know, we're all born with varying degrees of ego, and ego is a thing that can be really positive, but it's a thing that can be incredibly negative. And part of my journey actually stepped on what I think was very negative ego. And when I say negative, our egos can get so big that they actually get in the way of us dealing with life very well, and also dealing with people as well as we should.
Oh, isn't that the truth? God knows I've stumbled across a few of them.
Could you not speak to our special guest with your mouth full? Would you mind? A little bit.
It's okay. He's at home.
We're all at home.
I think so.
I got away with that until you highlighted it.
Well, precisely. What, you think everyone around the world didn't notice?
I don't mind. This is lunchtime. If people don't like it.
God almighty. All right, Paul, tell us your story, because it's a hell of a tale. A hell of a tale.
Well, okay. So, I mean, as background, I mean, people that know me on Facebook know that I'm a lawyer. I'm also a musician. I play, you know, I'd been on the boards. I wanted to be an actor and musician, and, you know, became a lawyer. Still do the other stuff. And, you know, I had a pretty good life. I was married. I had 3 kids, and I'm bubbling along very nicely. And suddenly at 59, one day, one evening, I go to the toilet and I pass some blood, and I thought, I've got a problem here. Typical age for prostate cancer. Go to the doctor. They get me into Chelsea and Westminster Hospital very quickly, and they did a CT scan. And a couple of days later, I was supposed to go back for camera observation and into my bladder. And I remember the doctor I saw said to me, "Oh, don't worry, your prostate's not enlarged. It's probably just kidney stones." The afternoon after I have the CT scan, or the same afternoon, they call me and say, "Well, you're coming back in on Monday, but don't come in the morning. You don't have to have you don't have to have the camera examination." And I'm not thinking too much about it. I go in at 2:00 on the Monday, And the surgeon sits me down and says, okay, I need to show you something. There's a little black area here, 3 centimeters big in your bladder. And the problem is that so it's a growth, and it's spread up into the tube that joins the bladder to the kidney. And by the way, your kidney is full of poison. I've been walking around for up to 6 months with a kidney full of poison. If it had exploded, I would have been wiped out. Sepsis, throughout. No symptoms whatsoever and there was no pain, no fever. Anyway, basically that afternoon, he told me I had bladder cancer. And he went through, sort of what could happen. And as long as we contain it and it doesn't get outside of the bladder, then the worst that should happen to you is we will remove your bladder and you will urinate in a bag. And so at that very moment, my head went very fuzzy. I understood what he was saying, and I was trying to keep very calm about it. But this strange feeling, and I'll go backwards now, because this strange feeling is the precursor to having a clinical depression. I had suffered from severe clinical depression on 2 occasions, one in 2000 and one in 2009. And both were around money. I had law business that was running well, but the first time round we had a client who basically stopped doing the business that I was doing. We effectively lost £500,000 turnover a year. And I had a family and commitments, and my head just went. I think I'd always suffered. I realize now that I probably suffered from I'll call it mental illness, mental frailty, although it was hidden behind this big ego and this very loud exterior, and nobody sort of looking in would ever have thought that I would be someone that suffered. So this big event was the first time that I really, really, really suffered, and my imagination went wild. All I could see was failure, losing my home, not being able to fulfill my responsibilities. And then I had visions of living in a shop doorway and people urinating on me or burning me with a flamethrower. I didn't sleep for 12 days. I was out in Italy visiting a very, very close friend. And eventually I came back home from that trip. It was Christmas 2000. Or 2001, and I literally didn't sleep for 12 days, and I was in a complete mess. Unfortunately, on that occasion, I was sent to see a psychiatrist who put me on a cocktail of 3 of the worst drugs you could imagine, and I actually lost 7 months of my life. I couldn't function, and yet I was going through. It's strange when you go through this, because you have a motor function that still allows you to do things. And believe it or not, I would get in my car and drive to the office, hoping that nobody realized that I was this shambling wreck, which I clearly was. But for me, everything had to become a routine. So it would be the same sandwich, the same coffee, sitting in the same position and doing the same thing every day. That was the first occasion, and I never really dealt with it during that period, because although I would go and see this psychiatrist every weekly to begin with, and then 2 weekly, and then 1 monthly, and we'd talk about it. It was really a form-filling exercise. He'd say to me, well, how are you feeling? And, he'd sort of write the answers down and draw a line and then tell me I was either improving or not improving. And eventually my then wife, who was absolutely wonderful. I mean, she put up with all of my nonsense before I was ill. She marched me in there and said to the psychiatrist, you have to take him off these drugs. He's completely gone. He doesn't even exist anymore. I could deal with him when he, was an egotistical, arrogant piece of work. This I can't deal with. He took me off the drugs, and I began to recover and come back into the world. And I massively lost my confidence through this. And I effectively started a new period, I guess, of my law career because I got into company commercial disputes and built up my confidence, and everything was going very well until a few years later in 2009, one of my business partners got colon cancer, and it was a horrible time, and I wanted to support him and did so financially. And then unfortunately my other partner wasn't doing particularly well in bringing money in. We found ourselves up against it, and I had another one of my clinical depressions. This time I wasn't medicated, and I was able to think things through a lot more clearly. But again, I realized my frailty, and it was a tough time. On that occasion, I actually sat on Battersea Bridge when my then girlfriend told me that she had fallen pregnant, and it was not a very good relationship. And I seriously considered throwing myself off the bridge. I guess it's only because of my kids that I didn't, because I knew that it was utterly unfair of me to be that selfish to end my life and to leave them wondering who their father was. I got off the bridge. I went to see an extremely good lady psychiatrist at Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. And we talked rather than drugged. And I then went into group therapy. I'd had cognitive behavioral therapy before, but I think I knew I'd figured out many years earlier where the root of the problem was. And the root of the problem was my childhood and a very difficult relationship with my mother, which anybody that knows me, I've always spoken about it. You know, often our relationships with the most pivotal people are the things that have this massive effect on our life. So I had these two serious episodes of clinical depression. Let's bring the clock back forward to, I think it was the 16th of June 2014, which was the day that the specialist told me I had cancer. And I had this fuzzy feeling, and this fuzzy feeling is the feeling before everything collapses. And I left the surgery, I left the consultant's room, and I went back to work, and I was feeling, you know, very strange and a little bit scared, because obviously I didn't know I had cancer before this. I hadn't read anything. Had a walk around the park with one of the partners, and then went home. And I just got back home and I said, listen, there's only one way for you to deal with this. You are going to have to be extremely positive, because if you're negative, you're going to have another breakdown. And if you have another breakdown plus cancer, you are going to take your life. So when people talk to me about people that followed this during the period I went through the operations and got better, and they say, oh, you never complained, you know, you were so strong about this. I had to be strong. Looking back now, yes, I'm proud of myself that I was able to deal with it. I'm more proud of the fact that I'm now able to help people through having dealt with it. But the choices for me were deal with it, address it head on, and be as positive about it as I could, or really take my life.
You know what I find fascinating, though, is the fact that you were able to give yourself that pep talk, as if to say, no, I'm going to be strong about this. I'm going to be positive. I've got to deal with this. Otherwise, I will fall back into sort of other particular conditions that maybe I just don't have the headspace for to deal with now. The fact that you actually managed to do that based on the history of depression is beyond inspirational, because seriously, there will be so many who are unfortunately more towards the former, which is sort of living with depression, and they are just not able to talk themselves out of it.
I think that there were things that I think what I did was I evaluated my life, and to some extent I reevaluated it. And I have to say that having gone through it, that I prefer the person that came out of cancer to the person pre-cancer. And so for me, when I talk about cancer and people say to me, oh my God, how terrible. Yes, I lost some organs. I lost my bladder. It actually spread to my prostate. I lost my bladder and my prostate, and I lost a kidney also, because the kidney that had got blocked when they put a stent in it, and obviously all the poison was drained, but it didn't come back to life. And so, you know, I could easily have said, oh, well, I'm missing these organs. I'm just going to sit around and be lazy and get fat and whatever. That part of my ego that said, no, I still want to look good. I still want to be healthy. I still want to be able to wear the same clothes. That was a positive part of my ego that I kept. But against that, you know, here I was, suddenly I was going to have a bag stuck to me. And I didn't want to make that an issue. This was just going to be my part of my body. Your bladder's inside, my bladder's outside. I don't hide away from that. But as a person, I always say cancer was a positive experience for me. I learned humility. The part of my ego that got in the way of me having good relationships with people disappeared. I understood people better. I understood difficulty better. I understood dealing with adversity better. And for me, I think it made me grow as a person. And so I've never, ever looked at having cancer as negative. I never, ever said, why me? Why not me? 50% of us are going to suffer cancer when we're 50 and over. And I guess in a way that what I wanted to do was embrace my cancer and put myself in a position where, having dealt with it, I could actually be a support to other people. You know, I don't ever talk about myself as a victim, and I don't talk about myself as a survivor. I talk about myself as a thriver.
As a thriver?
As a thriver. I've thrived since I had cancer. I think, you know, if I can say, and I'm not in any way I feel that I blossomed in so many ways after I had cancer. But what it did was, first of all, I became much more open as a person. And in terms of positive and negative things that had happened to me. And I found that I could embrace people and other people's lives. I look, professionally, I've spent my life helping people, but I get paid for that. Now I'm in a place where, if I can be an ear for somebody, support for somebody, I'm doing it because I want to do that, because I want to help somebody go through something that I've had experience of going through, not because I get paid for it, because actually I have to tell you, the buzz that I get if I know that I've helped someone on that journey is immense. There was a day, I think the 2nd anniversary of my last operation, have a yearly scan, and then I go off to see the nurse. And so this was the 2nd year, and there were a couple sitting outside the room, and he'd just been diagnosed with the same thing as I had gone through. And you can imagine they were just absolutely distraught. And I thought, look, I'm going to talk to them. They'll be able to see I've recovered. You know, here I am. I'm in pretty good physical shape. And I talked to them for about half an hour. And in the end, they were laughing. I mean, I made jokes about I showed them my bag, and I said, look, this is what's going to happen. Not the end of the world. You know, in fact, you can have a lot of fun with this in the winter when you're cold. You know, you can put your hand on your bag and you're going to be warmed up. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I know it's. But you know what? You have to take away this fear, and it's nothing to be feared. It's nothing to be loathed. You know, so I started coming up with this sort of strategy of making whatever jokes I could about it. And at the end of that half an hour, the nurse called them into the room, and they said, you really need this guy here. You know, we felt our lives were, we didn't know where our life was going. And in half an hour, we can see that life goes on. You can be fit again. You can be happy. I live my life in exactly the same way. The only thing I miss, and I hope I don't offend anybody, is, you know, that feeling where you're out and about and you're bursting to go to the toilet and you can't find a toilet, and eventually you get to one, and that feeling of utter relief. I don't get that. That's the only thing I miss. And in fact, I had one day in, I think it was 2018, where it suddenly hit me. And for a day, I cried incessantly that I was missing this feeling of going to the toilet and, you know, in that desperation and that thing, oh, thank God. And it was a stupid thing that set me off. But I then realized that I hadn't grieved for 3 years after I'd gone through all of this. A couple of other things happened to me as well. And Russ, I think we were probably friends by that time. So after I'd finished the cancer operations, and I had 5 operations in 8 months, the last one was the big one where I lost the prostate and bladder, and that was an 11.5-hour operation. And it took me probably 15 months to start getting really physically strong again. Wow. And then in March 2000,
I have to ask a really silly question at this stage, and please don't think I'm being flippant. I'm being deadly serious, because there are some questions that I've never been brave enough to actually sort of ask someone who is a survivor of cancer, because actually I feel like it's inappropriate, but I believe that you're strong enough and sort of have the right mindset to be able to ask this. When you lost those organs, did you feel physically different inside? As in, like, do you notice there's a physical difference inside?
Well, okay. So again, no. I mean, this is for me. This was the problem, that after I had healed, and I healed very quickly, I didn't obviously feel that there was any emptiness inside. Unfortunately, the effect of having a prostate removed is that the nerves are often severed and you lose the ability to have an erection. And that's obviously something that you have to deal with if it happens to you. But in terms of, so you physically heal, and of course you think, well, I'm healed outside. Inside, your body is telling you everything's changed. And the one thing that I was told was that, well, you may get urine infections, which is very strange given that you don't have a bladder anymore. And usually urine infections start in the bladder. And sure enough, as I started trying to get fit again far too early, and I was obviously putting my body under strain, I started to get urine infections on a recurring basis, and they're horrible. You know, I had never realized that when people had said before, oh, I've had a urine infection, you can be incredibly ill. I mean, they're so debilitating. And as you get older, apparently older people actually affects you mentally when you get them. So I think that was the thing that told me, my body was telling me, you're not repaired.
So can I just, sorry, do you mean, because obviously you mentioned about urine infections being the bladder, but I've known it more to be UTI, urinary tract infections, of course, means it's sort of the plumbing, if you will, behind it. So,
yeah, well, the strange thing is your plumbing is sort of cut out of the equation, because effectively what happens when you have your bladder removed, there are various possibilities. One is that they can remake a bladder, which is made from your intestine. That will be inside you, connected to your appendix, which will then be a conduit probably to your belly button or something called a stoma. And then you would put a catheter into yourself however many times a day you need to empty this bladder. Now that they guarantee you will regularly have urine infections, because you're introducing the catheter so many times a day, and for all the wiping down you do of something, you're still introducing something from outside to inside. And my surgeon said to me, although originally the idea was that they would remake the bladder inside, he said, look, I would prefer you to have a bag because of this propensity of getting urine infections. So the way it happens with me is I've only got one kidney left. So the tube that leads from the kidney to the bladder is retained. That is then taken to this thing called a stoma, which is made from the intestine. And exterior wise, it's like a little raspberry. And then you put your bag over it every day. and basically you wee outwards into the bag. So I don't have that plumbing anymore, and it's always intrigued me. I don't get urine infections very often now, but it's intrigued me, where do they start? Because I don't have those natural places they would start. It's the one thing I've never really got an answer to. But, you know, I did a lot of research on what would be the best way to connect. There's another way that to connect the bladder, which is absolutely disgusting. But apparently they can connect it to your back passage. And I just figure who on earth would want to do that? But I read everything that I could. And I think that I chose the option that, whilst it was one that would involve having something stuck to me, stuck to my exterior, would be the one that would give me the best chance of the best health and the least complication going forward. And I have to say, you know, to put a bag on every day, it's nothing. It's nothing. You know, if anybody said to me, people said to me, well, would if somebody said to you, you could have those organs back, would you exchange cancer for your sight? No. Would you exchange cancer for your hearing? No. Would you rather lose a hand or a foot? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Look, I'm lucky, and I don't want to devalue cancer. Type of cancer I got, unless it gets outside of the bladder, in most cases, removing the bladder will be an end of it. If you get through 5 years, they pretty much say it's not coming back.
Do you know, I don't know what the hell you think. If anything you're saying is devaluing it. I'm sitting here and I know Russ is thinking the same, because I can see from his reaction. It's just mind-blowing just how your amazing attitude towards it. This
is
not
why we
bad
wanted Paul on the show for some time. Paul, let me just give you some of the reactions of some of our listeners all over the world. Paul Claridge: too often the emotional impact of cancer or any other life-threatening illness is overlooked, as the treatment of the illness can be a priority for some doctors. Thankfully, we have a wonderful NHS and cancer charities who are addressing this. All Paul is saying resonates with me. I too have a bag. In my case, it's an ileostomy. Hey, the hand on the warm bag is one of my tricks too. Oh, and next time there's a toilet roll shortage, it ain't going to affect me. That's Paul Claridge. Andrea Lucas again. Andrea Lucas now says this: when Barbara had her first ileostomy, she asked me for her shoes to match the bag. It was her 21st birthday present. I totally get where Paul is coming from. And Ed Grossman says, I admire the positivity and analytical abilities. It's distressing me so much, as some of it is me. And I got to be honest with you, Paul. I've known you a while, and I kind of knew your story, but I'm sitting here unusually totally silent, because I think your story sparks so many. It's kind of overwhelming, but it sparks so many emotions, because you can't help. I think the human condition is, oh, what if that was me? How would I be? I'd be destroyed. And I would think to myself, could I be like Paul Nathan? Could I pull myself up, have the positive attitude, and say, right, I'm going to get back. I'm going to beat this bastard, and I'm going to get back to life. I mean, you look an absolute picture of health. I mean, you kind of radiate health. I know you do a lot of keep fit, you a lot of training, and you're pretty ripped. Glassy Amanda, who's a professional counselor.
Excuse me, may I just say how envious are most of us of that moustache? Bravo.
Yeah, the moustache alone is rocking it. Right, Glassy Amanda, who's a professional counselor. Have you frozen, Paul? Paul frozen?
I think Paul. Paul, have you frozen near us?
Paul? And he's never seen again. Glassy Amanda, such a wonderful attitude. Bravo. My mum has had a bag for 15 years and has never once complained either. Bravo to bravery. It's really, I'll be honest with you, it's really affecting me, this. Can't pretend otherwise. Normally I can kind of sail through. I don't know if you heard the last, did you hear the last last quote from one of our listeners, Glassy Amanda, who's a professional counsellor. Did you hear that?
I didn't.
It's such a wonderful attitude. Bravo. My mum has had a bag for 15 years and has never once complained either. Bravo to bravery.
Look, you said something about wondering, you wonder if you could cope. I had no idea I could cope. Honestly, I mean, when you're hit with it, and it's like somebody smacked you straight in the face.
Yes.
You don't know where to think, because if you've gone in, look, the easy thing when you pass blood is immediately at that sort of age, you think, oh my God, probably prostate cancer, but you don't want to, and people always say, don't read about it, don't read about it.
Mm.
And to read about it, you've got to be fairly, I wouldn't say brave, but you've got to accept that you're going to read some stuff that is quite unsettling. And you have to know that you're someone that can put it into perspective. But really, if you're going to face this, you've got to know what the alternatives are. I think you have to know what the worst case scenario is, but then you have to create the best case scenario. Just because someone tells you there's a worst case scenario, and the guy said to me, you may end up with a bag. Well, if that's the worst thing that happens in my life, it's really not very bad. It's just become, all I knew was that when I woke up, I was going to look down, I was going to see a bag, and it was just part of me. And so I wasn't going to be revolted by it. It's just a vehicle for me, going to the loo.
Ed Grossman says, which I find a bit mind-blowing as well, to be honest.
Yes.
I beat it, but didn't really deserve to. I was very, very lucky. Ed, please, I don't know you, but for heaven's sakes, don't say you didn't deserve it.
Ed, I really can't accept that you didn't deserve to. I mean, first of all, no one deserves to get cancer, even the worst person in the world. You should never, ever, I never, ever wish illness or death on anybody, my worst enemy. But I think that's the way that we're brought up. We don't get cancer because we deserve it or don't deserve it. We get it because we're unlucky. We get it because our cells mutate. And of course, our body recognizes it as our own cells and therefore doesn't fight it. In the same way as touching on the COVID, these apparently healthy people who are dying, generally the reason they're dying is because their immune system goes into overdrive, fights absolutely everything and destroys their organs. But unfortunately, with cancer, it's our own cells mutating, and we don't have a mechanism, therefore, for going and fighting it. No one deserves cancer, and everybody deserves to survive it.
Definitely.
I wonder why Ed says.
Well, I think you can actually, the other way to look at it, Russ, and I'm fairly sure that you'd be able to relate to this, given what you've been through, but don't you think that those who didn't survive, even if they don't know better, that their friends and family would have done anything, absolutely anything for them to beat it? So please don't say that you don't deserve it.
Yeah.
Completely. Look, when Ed talks about being lucky, I have to tell you, I'm lucky. And the reason I'm lucky is the type of cancer I got. Because, the worst thing for me actually was that once I knew that it was just bladder cancer and before it had spread to the prostate, I felt relatively okay because I was told that it was superficial, non-invasive. There's 4 layers of the bladder. It hadn't gone through any of them, and it was medium grade. When they removed my kidney, which was the 3rd operation, because it was dead and resected the bladder, that means sewing the bladder back up. When they did so they sent what they removed off for pathology, histology, etc. And I sat down and the surgeon said to me, have you got the result? And I thought he meant the result. They do a CT scan from pelvis to neck to check that. The secondary, by the way, for bladder cancer is lung cancer. So they do a check. And I said, yeah, it was clear. He said, no, the histologist come back. It's high grade, highly aggressive. And they were going to treat it with BCG therapy. So the BCG that we have in our arms when we're kids, that they put into the bladder once a week for 6 weeks. It inflames the bladder. the bladder, then the immune system attacks, and that's supposed to stop the cancer coming back. They didn't do that for 7 weeks, and when they came to do it, the cancer had microblasted back through. My whole bladder was now covered with cancer. I actually watched this on the screen, and it had spread to my prostate. There was the most beautiful flowery cauliflower, and you think, how can this beautiful thing's going to kill me? Looks like a flower. Of course, then I was scared when you're suddenly told highly aggressive and still, thank goodness, non-invasive and still superficial. So I couldn't wait for them to get rid of these organs. But that does change the thing somewhat. But I was very lucky because when the organs were removed, I didn't have to have chemotherapy. I didn't have to have radiotherapy, because they also removed all the lymph nodes down there, but they were clear. So I was lucky in that respect. And I was lucky in the respect that because it didn't get outside of those organs, the chances were I wasn't going to have a secondary cancer. And of course, with each year that went by and I was clear, I felt much more safe. And I'm coming up for 5.5 years since the last op. And they kept me on for another 5 years because I said, look, would you mind, can I have a scan every year for another 5 years? And they said, look, we're happy to do that. So yeah, look, I'm lucky. I'm lucky on 2 scores. 1, the type of cancer it was, and 2, that I managed to deal with it in the way that I did. But what I've taken out of it is the strength and ability to help other people. And that's a privilege. Believe me, it's an absolute privilege.
Paul, when you say you're helping other people, have you set something up, or do they come to you, or?
Well, I mean, I think through Facebook. Well, as far as the hospital, I'm sort of an ambassador. And I basically said at any time, if they have anybody in clinic who is having a problem and is worried or scared, happy to talk to them, happy to meet them, that I'll come in and do a clinic if they ever want me to address a clinic. And also, as you know, I post a lot about it on Facebook. And if people reach out to me privately, I will give them time, conversation, whatever they want. I haven't actually set up anything more official than that.
So here's something interesting, Paul. This is from Paul Claridge again. If anyone out there is facing the possibility of having a stoma, an ileostomy, colostomy, or urostomy, I can thoroughly recommend looking up the charity called Colostomy UK. They're an amazing source of info and support, and they have a wonderful Facebook group called Colostomy UK Support Group, which has thousands of members, many of whom are not medically trained, but are able to give sound advice gained from personal experience. In my view, the personal experience aspect of it is so vital, so important. Because if somebody's gone through it, you can ask them rather than it being a theoretical thing. I think so that important.
I had a wonderful, so I was at 2 different hospitals. I was at Chelsea and Westminster for the first 4 operations. And then I went to Guy's, where I saw the most amazing man who has been my consultant ever since. And he did the last op. But at Chelsea and Westminster, I had a wonderful Macmillan nurse. And, you know, I really applaud and appreciate what they do. But of course, the majority of them have probably not suffered from the cancer that they will be helping you with. And that's where I think it's important that those of us that have had the personal experience can perhaps add something that a Macmillan nurse can't add, which is we've actually been through it and how did we deal with it? I think one really, important thing is to get yourself fit. If you want to survive and thrive after cancer, you have to not feel sorry for yourself. You have to somehow get yourself back into a really great physical condition. And I think where good physical condition also comes in is with mental health, because if you're in a good physical condition, you're not looking in the mirror and you know, thinking you're depleted and feeling sad about what's happening.
I could not agree with you more. You know, when you get really out of shape and everything, and you look in the mirror and you think, oh, I look like shit. And be honest, it really affects you. And if you can take steps, because it's about control, isn't it, Paul? You can't control the spread of cancer.
You can't.
But you can kind of control a little bit how you look, your strength. You can have some influence over that. And I think anything that gives you some sense of control is so good for you in your head.
Oh, absolutely.
I really do.
There's no question that if you look good, it gives you a lift. And if you look ill, it makes you feel ill.
Of course it does.
I also think, and another really important thing, and I always had this in my armory, and I didn't use it during my first breakdown, is having something that you love to do. And I think, you know, the thing I love to do is music. It is the most, for me, it is my meditation and my incredible therapy. I mean, for me, if I go in the music room and I'm playing or composing, nothing else matters. I know for other people, that's golf. You talk to people that play golf and they will tell you out on the golf course, it doesn't matter what else is going on in their life. If you can find that thing that is that pleasure, that meditation, whether it be an obvious meditation or things such as yoga or meditation, whether it's playing chess, whatever it is, if you can find that, you have to use that as your medication. I call it medication.
Totally agree. And I'm not trying to belittle this in any way, because what you've gone through is huge. But if we take the millions of people, well, let's just take the UK, suffering from this lockdown thing, which is not the same as what you've gone through. Please do not think I'm trying to conflate the two. But people have had to dig very deep.
Oh, absolutely.
People have had to dig very deep, whether we like it or not. That is the fact. And people have had to take control of their lives. When lockdown started, Paul, I think a lot of people thought, oh, it'll be over in a few weeks. I'm going to drink, come at home, and what the hell? Yay. And then suddenly they realized, what the hell am I doing? So they had to take control of that. And then, like exactly as you've said, to find something which gives you that pleasure, which gives you that kind of Zen-like, I'm in the zone, this is what I'm doing, everything else is irrelevant. And it doesn't matter what the hell it is. It doesn't matter if it's crochet. It's irrelevant. I've got friends who do it like embroidery.
Yeah.
And when they do that, they're perfectly happy.
And it also absolutely doesn't matter what it is that you've gone through, even if it is something in someone else's eye potentially trivial. If it means something to you, and more importantly, your therapy, as it were, your music, your golf, crochet, whatever it is, helps you, that's why it's so essential just to do it and to help with what anyone else thinks.
Oh, listen, if you go away and crawl up, if you go and crawl up in bed, it takes you into a very dark place. I mean, the first time in 2001, I literally was crawled in a fetal ball for weeks.
Literally,
I just felt safe that way.
Paul, literally, I mean, literally, you were in bed, fetal position for weeks. Wow.
Yeah, for weeks. And when I ventured out, I was so scared. I mean, I was just scared of everything. And by then I was sort of operating under this cloud of drugs. But yeah, I mean, at that point in time, I had no functionality. Look, I accept that I suffer from depressive illness. I'll always suffer from depressive illness, which doesn't mean I'm ill. It means that I have the propensity to suffer from depression, and I have learned how to deal with that depression. The thing that has helped me, funnily enough, was the cancer, realizing that I could get through that, and it gave me more strength than anything. And believe me, I have days when I can wake up and I feel pretty crappy. I don't mean physically, mentally, and it's very easy to think, oh, you know what, maybe I should end it all. And that is over like that, because suddenly I say, be quiet.
Well, let's not rush past that. even now, you still have days like that.
Yeah.
And how long do those suicidal thoughts last?
They last about 5 minutes, because I take myself back through what I've gone through, and I say, well, what? Hang on, why are you feeling sorry? Are you feeling sorry for yourself about what? You've got your health, your kids are healthy, you've got a good job, you've got good friends, you love your music. Stop it. You know, it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Don't even indulge in it. But I can cope with that now. I couldn't cope with that then.
So it doesn't swamp that. How can I put this? So it doesn't swamp. It's like standing and a tsunami comes and you're armed with a teaspoon. You know, you're not going to get through it, but you're not swamped with it now. You can.
No.
I
have moments of it.
You can analyze it because you're a smart guy. So you can analyze it. You can be analytical about it. You can break it down and come through the other side. It's a huge achievement. And
but
if only
I'll tell you, you know, one of the problems with mental illness is other people's understanding of it. Some people are scared of people that suffer. Nothing to be, and obviously, if you are around somebody who is bipolar or suffers severe schizophrenia, it's going to be a very difficult journey being around them, and you're going to have to learn a lot of things. But you know, people are scared of mental illness because they think that it makes you lesser of a person. I am, or look, I've been told over many years, I'm an intelligent person. Clearly, I must have some intelligence because of what I do. In a way, that makes it more difficult when you sit back and you think, well, hang on, I'm an intelligent person and I should be able to rationalize all these things. Why is this affecting me so much? Well, one reason is that there's various things that spark mental episodes. One is chemicals. And yes, we can sometimes take drugs to control those chemicals. So, for example, in my case, my problem is a serotonin problem and serotonin uptake. And there's one drug that I take that probably actually has no effect on me anymore, that just enables my body to deal with that in the proper way. Sorry?
Are we able to know what it is? Because a lot of people are on medication.
It's a drug that for many people doesn't work. It's called citalopram. And I take a very small dosage of it. And it's probably become just something, I think because of the exercise that I do now and the fitness and everything else, I probably don't need it. But the doctor says to me, look, you know, it's not doing you any harm. Stick with it. And I guess it's that thing of when you believe something's helping you, or if you think something's helping you, you take it. I'm actually anti-drugs.
The thing about it is, just to jump in with citalopram, of course, what you can't do, and if anyone's listening who's on it, what you can't do is just, I'm going to stop taking it.
No,
you've got to. Yeah, I know this is a slight sidetrack, but you've got to be very, very careful because the side effects of stopping are huge. Do not, if you're on it, don't just stop it. You've got to ease it up. Maybe start to take it every other day, and then maybe every 3 days or something like that.
Yes, absolutely.
Then over a period of time, you can wean yourself off it. But please do not go cold turkey.
Absolutely not.
Well.
No, do not cold turkey on anything like that. And think very carefully. Look, I mean, I come back to fitness. Physical fitness is very much allied to mental fitness. Eat well. Don't abuse alcohol. Don't use anything that's depressive, because obviously that's not going to help you
what would that be, Paul?
Well, I think, you know, a lot of recreational drugs actually have an incredible depressive effect. I mean, look, I grew up around, I have a few friends that are not alive anymore because they, you know, went from smoking grass to cocaine and then unfortunately heroin. And if they didn't die directly from that, they died young because they had a stroke or something like that, all from good middle-class families. But, you know, people, for example, running around snorting cocaine thinking, well, yeah, I'm feeling absolutely amazing. The end effect of it is depressive, you know, because when it stops, what you become is a shell of a person. alcohol has wonderful lifting effects as you're drinking it and having the high, but what it's actually doing is causing depression. I mean, you know, part of a hangover is a depression. And so I think that, look, I'm an advocate of do things in moderation. Have a drink, enjoy a drink, have a cream cake, have some things that are not good for, but generally, if you want to have good mental health, you have to lead an overall healthy life. Eat well, exercise, do positive things. You know, find that thing or things that really you enjoy, that take you away from the daily routine, that stop you thinking about your job, that stop you thinking about something that may be a problem, but actually may not be a problem. You know, we're very good at magnifying things into problems that may not be a problem.
Of course.
You know, we look at something and we think, instead of
why the expression "mountain out of a molehill" exists, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's, you know, we're fantastic. We're very creative as human beings. We're very creative, and we can take something and we many people, and those who are depressive, create the worst outcome possible in their heads.
Yeah,
and of course it's catch-22, isn't it?
We've had experts on, and it's called catastrophizing. So you will lie in bed and you go, this is going, oh my Christ, oh God. And what they have shown time and time again is 97% of everything that you think is going to be a catastrophe and a disaster, it never happens. Never. Not even starts. So you've got yourself into the most terrible mindset over something that will not happen. And it's so important. Even if you have to talk to, I think even if you have to talk to yourself aloud, you know, you start going down that road. Oh my God. And if you talk to yourself aloud and actually, I'm going to come back to analyze it, you think, this is bullshit. What am I doing here? This is ridiculous. Stop.
Paul,
now.
Paul, you know, the other thing as well, of course, which is super important, is a positive mental attitude. And that is one thing that you, thank God, clearly have in abundance. And I can't even begin to tell you how, I don't know what other word to use other than inspirational I found it having you on this show today. Seriously.
You know, Phil, I wish I could bottle it and give it to people. You know,
I said earlier.
I give it to people for free. I really would. I mean, Russ, I have to tell you that I was the expert at catastrophizing. The pre-cancer Paul Nathan, absolutely expert at it. I'm the opposite now. I'll work out the good result. But I know that's what's good for me. That's what's healthy for me. And I know what isn't healthy for me.
You know, I don't want to let this go. I know we've got somebody else, but I don't want to let this go. It takes a degree of training yourself to stop it. It really, really does. It's not just, right, I'm going to change tomorrow. Life doesn't work like that, but you have to recognize it and you have to train yourself. As I said, even if you talk out loud to yourself, to say, what am I doing? This is actually never going to happen. Stop. And life becomes so much better. Life becomes so much more pleasant. 97% of the stuff you think is going to happen, it ain't going to happen to you. Just what?
And sometimes you need other people to tell you that.
Ed Grossman says, and believe me, this is praise coming from Ed because he's a very competent guy with a big reputation. Paul, I wish you'd been my lawyer, not a joke.
Ed,
coming from Ed, that's a big deal.
Give me a call anytime.
Hey, Glassy Amanda, I just want to wind up with this. Glassy Amanda, who, as I said, professional counsellor, very moved by Paul's amazing attitude, by everyone sharing their own stories of survival. I'm in bits. Bless. Wow. And she's in the industry. That's what she does for a living.
Because honestly, this is more designed to help people, and I hope it does. So thank you.
Let me say thank you for the opportunity to have spoken and other people listening to me. And, you know, I will say very clearly here, I'm on Facebook if anyone wants to get in contact with me, either on the normal pages or to follow me or to contact me directly. I will always have time to talk to people about cancer or mental health and see if I can help them along the way.
Amazing. You are just amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
It's been great. And in the great words of Vinnie Jones at the ends of Lock Stock, it's been emotional, but it really has. Really has been.
Thank you.
Take care.
Keep
Stay
well.
safe.
Farewell. Bye. And please come back and see us soon. There you go. Oh my good God. Imagine. You know,
Phil, this is where I need you and I to walk up the street from our old studio in Covent Garden, go to Old Compton Street, go up the stairs to the Soho Whiskey Club, because I'm wrecked. I'm wrecked for that. That pressed so many buttons with me. I'll be honest with you. It pressed so many buttons with me. Wow.
Can I just say, I'm standing by. I'm warning you.
I've got to share something with you. I went very, very quiet at one point because I was just kind of I've known Paul a number of years, and I was just so overwhelmed when you hear the whole thing. I didn't know he'd stood on Westminster Bridge. It's our second guest who's done that, Phil. Second guest. It's just think our little radio station. We've had 2 guests who stood on London Bridge ready to jump. Unbelievable. It's only going to get worse. And I thought at the time, I'll be very open about this. I've never made a secret. I've written the book when we knew it was game over, and we came. Paul was talking about looking at the X-rays and everything like that, and we had one last chance. One last chance. We waited for an expert to come in from Sweden. He arrived at Sweden. We went to the hospital, and we saw the pictures, and it was game over. And you think, oh, that's it. And I was transported back there, and it's. I remember that day so clearly because we just said, oh, screw this. And we went off to Maggie Jones, had a huge lunch and got drunk. Seemed about the only thing that one could do when you got these circumstances, when you know that's it. But we gave it a good shot. He's a very brave guy. He's a very interesting guy. And I have to tell you, what you won't see from those images about Paul Nathan, he is ripped. This guy is ripped. He's like the Vince McMahon of lawyers. He is absolutely hench. And he's done it because he just trains like crazy.
Now,
I'd like to. Right.
There is absolutely no easy way, to segue.
Don't do the song. Would you do me a big favor? Don't do our little theme tune, because I don't think. Be honest with you, I don't think I could take it.
I don't think it's very easy to segue into this next section. So instead, we will bring Chantal onto the screen and just say, Chantal Rickards, a very, very warm welcome to you. We're sorry we kept you waiting, but thank you once again for joining us.
Not at all. Nice to see you guys. Yeah, and let's lose the song for this week. I think you're right. But the only song that brings to mind is
these glasses. These are statement glasses.
I've got statement glasses on today. Wow, taking out the contact lenses.
This is like, take me seriously. I'm Chantal Rickards, and I know what I'm doing here. Wow, those are serious old glasses. They look fantastic.
Yeah. Day off contact lenses.
I don't know if you were listening. I didn't even know you wore contacts. I don't know if you were listening earlier in the show, but I did have the temerity to bring your name up and your heritage with the wonderful people who were talking about their film that they've made about suicide, and they're trying to get it. I'm going to put you. I don't blame you, but I'm going to put you in touch, if I may be so bold to do that, because they've obviously got an excellent product there, and they probably need a bit of a discussion. And I think you are the absolute best person. No, come on, don't pull a face. You're the best person.
Happy to help.
Can I just ask you? I don't think I'm going to be the only one left out of this. Oh, there we go. But it's like a peer group.
When do you wear glasses? What's this?
There we go. Much better.
Very good. Yes, loving the glasses.
Hang on. Whoa. When have you worn glasses?
You see, there are things you don't know about me.
I'm completely lost. These are my reading glasses, because otherwise I can't see the screen. I don't wear glasses on.
These are what's called, Russell, these are what's called accessory glasses. These are available in River Island. They actually have no lens to them whatsoever. They're completely see-through. And it's because genuinely people do actually wear them as accessories. I don't need them.
That's hilarious.
And wouldn't you know it?
So I'm like this. Right. Please lighten the mood. It's very weird, because what Paul Nathan was saying was so inspirational, but it takes you into a really dark place. So no pressure, lighten the mood. Why don't you?
Actually, can we just say to anyone who hasn't watched the show before, and I don't know whether or not if you are listening or watching and you haven't seen it before, please don't think that we're sort of going from talking about something so serious about surviving cancer and surviving mental illness or what have you, and then talking about television. It's very simple. The show gets very heavy. And the only way that, I'm going to be brutally honest, the only way that Russ and I cope with it is once in a while we have to lighten the mood. So forgive us. It's indulgent. We have to do it because otherwise it gets us. So forgive us. But we're very happy to have it.
And of course, the important thing to say is that, you know, before we get on to talk about what's on telly and in the movies this week, that actually going to the movies and watching great stuff on television lightens your load. It makes you feel better. If you find something really wonderful that, you know, is a transport of delights, it takes you out of what can be a crappy frame of mind. So, and just going back to not having a song this week, just think about always walking on the, you know, the sunny side of the street, because sunlight boosts serotonin levels. And that is incredibly important for one's mental wellness. So if there's sunshine out this weekend, go and get a shot of vitamin D and sit in the sunlight, and it will definitely raise your spirits.
Totally. So true. And so important. People forget that. And don't forget, there's a long winter come. Grab it now.
There's a long winter coming, indeed.
Grab it now.
Yeah.
So Jeremy Brannan has just commented suggesting that he is a new listener. So there you go. Welcome, Jeremy.
Oh, that's nice.
Hello.
Fantastic. Now, Chantal, major props to you as per usual. Saw twin number 2 yesterday, who saw the Christopher Nolan film, and absolutely. Now, he's a film fanatic. I mean, when I say fanatic, honestly, you and he could just sit down and just talk in such detail. And he said, in all honesty, he'd never seen some of the scenes and some of the action sequences. He'd never seen anything like it. And he analyzed films like you can't believe. So it's obviously pretty special, as you suggested.
It is. It's very special. I don't think it's aimed at me or my audience, but you and I have boys of a similar age, and my youngest went to see it at the IMAX last weekend in Waterloo, and he absolutely loved it. It's absolutely crash bang wallop with knobs on, and I think for that age group, it's completely perfect. And actually, it's good. It should be seen, because it's Christopher Nolan really is an artist. He's a great filmmaker.
Yeah, he is.
It's a long time since I've been to the IMAX. I really think that I need to actually make an effort, even if I don't actually fancy watching anything at the moment at the cinema. I think I need to make an effort to go there. It's a terrific experience.
No, it is. It's wonderful. Well, rather similarly, in terms of a sort of, a head wrench movement from what Paul was saying earlier on, and now going into television, we're going from Christopher Nolan to All Creatures Great and Small, which is a bit of a move from one side of the screen to the other side of the screen. But it's just come back onto our screens. I'm sure that older listeners and viewers will remember that it was one of the staples of the BBC in the 1970s.
And drink water.
Yeah, and it ran for years, and it kept on being repeated and repeated and repeated. But Channel 5, who are not really known for their sort of outstanding drama, and I slightly had my sort of my head in my hands thinking, is this going to be any good? And am I going to feel disappointed at the end of it? Because, Channel 5 was bringing it back. But actually, I'm really happy to repeat that it's lovely. And it absolutely is one of those programs that just makes you feel better. It's been extremely well done. It's filmed in Yorkshire, which is clearly a beautiful county. Not quite filmed as far north as the old one was. It's filmed in Nidderdale and Grassington, or Grassington, as they say up there, Freddie Truman country. And it's incredibly beautiful. So, lots of beautiful scenes of gorgeous old motor cars driving across the dales. It's very well done. The books are tremendous, as most people I'm sure will remember. It's got the highest rating of any show for 4 years on Channel 4, on Channel 5.
But Chantal, it's going to be very difficult to follow Christopher Timothy, who plays James Harriet.
Indeed. Well, he's actually an actor that I didn't know called Nicholas Ralph. He's extremely good. The man playing Siegfried is the son of Sam West and Prunella Scales. Oh. He's Sam West. He's Timothy West's son. and Prunella Scales' son. And actually, he's brilliant, plays it incredibly well. I think he's in his mid-50s. He doesn't look anything like a guy in his mid-50s. But they're a very, very good counterbalance. They work incredibly well together. So I'm extremely hopeful that this is going to be a great series. It has already been commissioned for a second series. I've now seen the first 2 episodes, and they're great. So, join in if that's the sort of stuff you like. It's non-COVID, it's COVID-free telly.
Agreeing with you totally. Eve Phantom says, love all creatures, great and small. It's like a cup of tea for the eyes.
It's absolutely,
it's
exactly that. That's what I would have said, a cup of tea and a warm bath all at the same time. It's so British.
And I think it feels very appropriate and very timely, given that Diana was in it, or is in it rather, but obviously I'm guessing it must have been one of her final appearances, really.
It must have been, because I was going to mention Diana Rigg, and thank you for prompting me. She appears in the second episode as one of the sort of the grand dame in a stately home in Yorkshire, and plays it beautifully. So, and it was filmed at the end of last year. I think from what I heard, that Diana Rigg had only been recently diagnosed as unwell, suffering from cancer. So she looks great in it from last year. She was clearly well then.
Yeah, and
I got the news.
I'll just do your job, shall I? I'm so sorry. Do apologise. It wasn't me trying to prompt. It was just that it was the first thing that came to my mind when I knew that she was in it, and of course she only died this week. So to anyone who hasn't heard, I'm sorry.
Indeed. Great actress. I did see one review of her yesterday that didn't mention the Avengers, and I thought that must have been written by somebody under the age of about 50, because clearly they'd never heard of it.
She will always be Emma Peel to me.
She will always be Emma Peel to a lot of people.
I saw her in the West End stage in Medea, I think it was. And she was brilliant. It wasn't my cup of tea, because I'm not really into Greek tragedy, but it was. It's all a bit too histrionic for me, but she's great. I mean, what a stage presence! Wow. I actually, when I got the news, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and I thought, because it was part of like me as a kid watching her as the, the perfect woman when you're growing up. You go, God, Emma Peel, look at this. She's just fantastic.
She was brilliant.
Yeah, she was really. It was great.
Yeah, the only woman ever to marry James Bond.
Correct.
Yeah.
What does he say? Don't worry, we have all the time.
I still get a tear in my eye at the end of On Her Majesty's Secret Service for that.
Tell me something. I'm going to throw this at you, right?
Yeah.
Everybody was really harsh on George Lazenby being James Bond, and when you watch that film again, you expect it to be terrible, and it's really not terrible at all. I thought
it isn't. I thought it was good. Yeah, he's part of the LA crowd, and the Brits all love him because we feel as though he's one of our own because of his portrayal of James Bond all of those years ago. So he's very much part of the British set in Hollywood, and he's an extremely nice man. It was a pity it didn't work out for him, because I think he could have matured in that role. He's not as bad as history remembers him.
No, history was really. I know it's not appertaining, but you're the expert on these things. I just wondered why everyone was so down on him, because I thought he did a really pretty good job. People
there was quite a lot of back chat that came off the set, which I think was quite rare in those days, to hear all the stuff that was.
He didn't get on. Diana Rigg didn't like him. They didn't like each other. They didn't get on at all. There was a whole thing about, if they were doing an afternoon shoot, they'd eat garlic. So if they had to do a romantic scene, it was all garlicky. Yeah.
That was a bit like, Phil. Can I just say, that was a bit like me when we used to do the Friday show in the studio, Russ.
It was. Right, Chantal, I'm so sorry. What else have you seen?
Not at all. But I was going to mention something slightly more serious. I was cycling down Oakley Street in Chelsea earlier on in the week after my big outing to the West End. But it was very lovely to be back on my bike and heading through Chelsea. And I went down Oakley Street and saw one of the blue plaque for Bob Marley, which I hadn't noticed before. And I'd also noticed that there was a new Bob Marley documentary. Yeah, he lived in Oakley Street. When he left Jamaica after the assassination attempt in the mid-70s, he came and lived in London, and that was where he lived. That made prompted me to go and watch this TV show that is on the BBC at the moment. It's a one-off documentary, and it's called When Bob Marley Came to Britain, and it's about those years that he spent over here. And it's a fascinating story. I learned so much about Bob Marley that I didn't know, including about how cancer finally took him at the age of 36. I hadn't quite realised how young he was. He had a horrible.
I thought he was way older than that. Isn't it strange? In my head, he was much older.
Yeah, a ghastly skin cancer. He refused to have his toe removed. He was advised to do so. He decided against it, and sadly, he died 4 years after he was diagnosed at only 36 years old. But it's a great documentary. The archive is wonderful. Really, really great black and white archive and some color archive too from the 60s and 70s. But it's really worth watching. Actually, it's interesting. If you don't know the story of Bob Marley and the rise of Rastafarianism, it's a great watch. So anyway,
when Bob came to Britain, is it? Or when Bob
Marley came to Britain. Yeah.
Love it.
It does what it says on the tin there, doesn't it, really?
I'm not entirely sure whether or not I want to read this out, Chantal, because I dare say that you are far too classy for this kind of...
I don't think so.
Are we not going to read out Ken Elm's thing, are we?
I can't bring myself. I'm sorry. Ken Elm, that'd be ridiculous.
I am thinking, I don't want to embarrass myself in front of Chantal, who I've known for years. Even I don't want to go there.
There's absolutely no way that Chantal would even stoop to the level that Channel 4's latest programming apparently appears to have done, in which, shall we say, that it gives people the opportunity to discuss hair of an intimate nature.
Let's just say south of the border, down Mexico way. Right.
No, I'm not watching that, but I am watching Skin on BBC One, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend. But I'm a medical junkie, basically. I will watch anything with a medical theme on.
I agree.
But yeah.
Well, that's just
the Channel 4 thing is probably not quite up my street, or indeed down my street.
Not in anyone's street. Yeah. I don't understand what the hell. I don't understand why they do this stuff. I guess people must watch it, but I wouldn't. Have you ever seen?
Channel 4 has always been designed to be this channel that shocks people, hasn't it? It's right.
Indeed, that was its remit, Phil. That was when it was first created. It was supposed to be standout. It was supposed to be a complete counterbalance to everything that was on BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV. In the good old days of only 3 channels, along comes Channel 4, which was supposed to be like a naughty teenager. And actually, it completely fulfilled that remit for many years, and then it got terribly safe. And we're in a sort of weird space with it at the moment.
It sort of has sort of fulfilled that remit, and even now it continues to once in a while continues to do so. If you think of programs that have come out of it, such as Shameless, that drama that came out of it was filth. It was absolute filth. For some reason, it was really compelling. And even now, I still find myself occasionally rewatching episodes of it because it really was so forward-thinking. Yeah. But it's bizarre how it comes, what it comes out with. I mean, I'd love to know the commissioning editor. Good God, extraordinary.
Why you got a show? You got a show lined up?
Not just question them.
Now, Chantal, have you seen a series which I absolutely love that I was introduced to called Bull with Michael Weatherly?
Did you say Bull or Born?
No, Bull. B-U-L-L. Bull.
No,
he
Bull.
He plays a guy called Dr. Bull. It's beautiful. Michael Weatherly, who was very special agent DeNozo in NCIS for 1 billion years, and then he left, and everyone said, "Oh, you're mad." And he went off, and he's got this series where he's the lead. It's terrific. It's really good acting. Really interesting scripts. He is a jury expert, not jewelry, jury expert. So he goes into court, and all the sub characters are really interesting. I recommend. It's called Bull.
Okay, brilliant,
very entertaining.
Brilliant,
I must say.
And next week we'll pick up on. I think last week a couple of your audience wanted to know about. Entourage, which is on Amazon Prime and Sky. We'll dig into that next week because there's quite a lot to say about it, and it is naughty and it is shocking, but it's really good fun. And we'll talk about The Fall, which was one of the best psychological thrillers for years that the BBC put out.
Is that set in England?
The Fall is what's set in England.
The Fall.
The Fall is Northern Ireland. It was filmed in Belfast.
It's on my watch list, so I'm going to go and catch up with it this week and see what we can come up with. But Chantal,
they're both brilliant. We'll dig into them next week.
As are you. Thank you, Chantal. We really appreciate it as ever. Your
good seeing you guys.
Expertise
Happy
is very
watching.
Yes, thank you. We're loving the glasses.
Bye.
They rock.
Yeah,
they rock.
Hang on a second. Let's just do this last bit with the glasses. There we go. That's it.
All right, now we're all got glasses.
Properly. Hang on. There we go. That's terrific. Okay,
Marvelous.
there we go. Oh, it's terrific.
It's
well,
great. It's marvelous.
For another week.
Ken Elm, stop it. Glassy Amanda loves the entourage. Yeah, it was very good. Right, well, that's it. What a show. I'm going to go and have a lie down.
Oh, God, I'm going to have a toss. I don't care who knows it. Right, anyway, there you go. Issues, but we'll talk about them next week. Back on Monday, everybody, at midday. So please do make sure that you join us then. Thank you, for heaven's sakes. I mean, as if thank you even seems like a big enough word to all of our guests from today's program. Absolutely incredible. And not just that, thank you for your comments. And, well, thank you for putting up with us as well for 3 hours. Good Lord. That's an achievement in itself. Okay, are you doing anything this weekend?
Do you know what I'm doing? Going to my storage unit. Hey, I know how to live.
Do you know what? I can see why people. I can totally see why people envy your life. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah, I'm going to my storage unit. I'm going to have a look. God Almighty.
See
you, everybody.
On Monday. Goodbye.